Chapter 4660. He took off his boots, washed up, and got into bed. That night, without Shen Xian by his side, Xiao Zhonghan felt that he slept especially well. It wasn't until late the next day that he was awakened by the soft footsteps of the servants outside. Getting out of bed, his eyes were still drowsy. Looking up, he saw that the hands of the quartz clock had already reached 10. Damn it, where was that woman? Why didn't she wake him up earlier? After cursing in his heart, Xiao Zhonghan suddenly froze. He remembered that the woman seemed to have run away last night. In the middle of the night, the world was not peaceful. She didn't know many people here, so where could she have gone? Moreover, she had been spoiled since childhood and had never seen the suffering of the world. Xiao Zhonghan sneered, waiting for Shen Xian to obediently roll back. He first went to Shen Xingyue's place to accompany her for breakfast. After comforting her for a while, Xiao Zhonghan took a car to the general office. The young commander was ruthless and decisive in his actions. The soldiers under his command were like iron poles in his hand. When he walked in, no one dared to raise their heads to look at him, even if this person's status was once lower than theirs. From the outer circle of errand runners to the young commander who held real power, everyone envied him for meeting Shen Qinghe, except for himself. Sitting in the large, custom-made chair, he didn't have time to do anything before the door was pushed open from the outside. Lurong winked as he looked him up and down. Oh, which beauty was so beautiful last night that even our young commander Xiao couldn't bear to get out of bed? Lurong and Xiao Zhonghan were true brothers who had gone through life and death. The two were originally from Shen Qinghe's outer circle and had gone out on missions together for several years. Later, when Xiao Zhonghan became the young commander, he also asked for Lurong. In front of him, Lurong never knew what was high or low status, and did not pay attention to the way he spoke. Brothers were brothers. Xiao Zhonghan glanced at him. If you have something to do, then get out. Fine, your words are so unpleasant to hear. No wonder people hate you. Lurong straightened his expression and put away his careless expression. He threw a letter in his hand onto Xiao Zhonghan's table. Qinghe had someone deliver this. Speaking of which, did you detain her second concubine? It's not that I want to criticize you, but Shen Xingyue has been married to Qinghe for so many years. Why do you still think they can't reconcile? Xiao Zhonghan coldly glared. Lurong rubbed his nose and didn't dare to continue. However, no one knew more about the matter between Xiao Zhonghan, Shen Xingyue, and Shen Xian than Lurong. He looked at Xiao Zhonghan's expression and tried to restrain himself, but in the end, he was unable to restrain himself. No matter how good second young Miss Shen is, she's already married. No matter how bad eldest young Miss Shen is, she's still been your wife for several years. Her heart is completely tied to you. Scram. This time, Xiao Zhonghan didn't even bother to look at him and directly kicked him out. Lurong was fearless. No matter what, Shen Qinghe had saved him. He had picked him up when he was about to starve to death. To return the favor, he could disregard Shen Xian and Xiao Zhonghan's feelings, but he still needed to advise them. Miss Shen is really good to you. I'm so envious. There are so many young men for her to choose from, but she only likes you. All these years, you've embarrassed her in every way, but I've never seen her complain about you. Where could he find such a wife? Before he could finish his sentence, with a whoosh, a high-quality inkstone narrowly brushed past his head and landed on the blanket behind him. He turned around to look. Fortunately, the blanket was thick enough. Smacking his lips, Lurong finally obediently rubbed his nose and slipped away when he felt the tangible coldness emanating from Xiao Zhonghan's body. The door closed in front of him. Without Lurong's chatter, the air became still again. Chapter 4661. Isn't it possible to perform a C-section? Western doctors are the best at it. As long as my child can hold on to 7 months, he will definitely survive. Shen Xian grabbed Chu Qingwan's arm, her eyes flashing with hope. Miss Chu, please help me. You're really crazy. Why should I help you? Chu Qingwan pulled her arm back and looked at her. If the child is gone, you can have another one. If you abort him, you still have a sliver of hope to live. Don't tell me you want your father to see his child die? Shin Xin lowered her eyelashes. After a while, she raised her head. I can create the illusion that I ran away. That way, father will feel better. His relationship with Zhong Han is slightly better, so I can't cause trouble at this juncture. So running away myself is the best ending. Chu Qingwan's brows furrowed tightly as she looked at Shin Xin. This woman really seemed to be different from what Commander Xiao had said. The current political situation was chaotic. Shin Xin's father was the governor and held the military in his hands. Because of Shin Xin's relationship with Commander Xiao, the other commanders did not dare to act rashly. But if something really happened to Shin Xin, could this kind of balanced situation still be stabilized? It was obvious that Shin Xin had also thought of this point. Because of this, she was even willing to silently die. Was this kind of person really the vicious and scheming eldest young miss of the Shin family that Xiao Zhonghan had described? Chu Qingwan's eyes moved. Then what about Commander Xiao? Why don't you let him know? Absolutely not. Panic flashed across Shin Xin's pale face. He hates me so much. If he knew that I was pregnant with his child, he would definitely not allow him to live. Miss Chu, I don't ask you to help me. You just have to help me keep this secret. Madam. Chu Qingwan suddenly spoke, interrupting Shin Xin. What if I told you that Commander Xiao and I were fake, that it was an act for you to see? He never touched me, yet he made you pregnant with his child. Perhaps he does care about you a bit. No. Shin Xin's expression was bitter as her fingers stroked her cheek. He touched me only because of my face. Because of Xingyu, I look very similar to Xingyu. When we were together, he thought I was her. He didn't touch you because of Xingyu. From the beginning to the end, she was the one he loved. So, if you die, who will raise your child? Chu Qingwan asked. It was I who let this child down. Shin Xin's eyes dimmed. She could not let her father know that she had risked her life to give birth to this child, nor could she let him become a thorn in Xiao Zhonghan's heart. If he really survives, I would like to ask Miss Chu to help me find a good family to entrust to. I have some private savings, and I will give them to Miss Chu another day. Miss Chu, you can just give some to that family every year. Ha! Chu Qingwan sneered and pulled away Shin Xin's hand that was grabbing her sleeve again. It seems that Madam has thought it through. I really meddled in other people's business and caused a lot of trouble for no reason. Thank you, Miss Chu. Shin Xin's eyes were slightly wet. Although Chu Qingwan was complaining, she was willing to agree. She gently caressed her lower abdomen, her eyes sparkling. Her baby, her baby, her baby with the one she loves. Knock, knock, knock. Chapter 46-62. Master God Region, you didn't? Chu Qingwan frowned. Yes. No more dodging, no more dodging. This time, Shin Xin raised her head without showing any weakness and met Chu Qingwan's gaze. This time, she was magnanimous as she said to Chu Qingwan word by word, in the past decade or so, Xiao Zhonghan has hated me, scolded me, and blamed me, but I have never schemed against him. I have never done anything to let him down. Whether you believe it or not, the corners of her mouth curved, and her teary eyes were filled with stubbornness. I have never done it. I only love him. Even if he hates me, resents me, and wishes for nothing more than my death, it has never wavered. Chu Qingwan was stunned. She had once pitied and sympathized with Shin Xin, the wife of the young commander, because of her illness, but she had never liked her. She didn't like her not because of her past viciousness and scheming. Instead, it was because of her cowardice. In front of Commander Xiao, she seemed to always be cowardly and timid. But at this moment, the cowardly and timid Shin Xin in her eyes had a smile on her lips and her back was straight. Xiao Zhonghan hates me and blames me. I can't explain it, and even if I did, he wouldn't believe me. I'm waiting. I thought that as long as I kept waiting, there would be a day when he would believe me of his own accord. Her smile became brighter and more dazzling, but the bitterness at the corners of her mouth was deep. But I'm afraid I won't be able to wait. Her entire body was ice-cold without a trace of warmth. Her stomach twisted in pain and pulled outwards. Fine beads of sweat seeped out from Shinsean's pale cheeks. Her hands were tightly clenched, and the green veins under her skin were visible to the naked eye. Chu Qingwan's eyes were filled with a complicated expression. She thought Shinsean was despicable, shameless, selfish, and cowardly. But the Shinsean in front of her was stubbornly foolish, so stubborn that it made one's heart ache. Was this Shinsean the Shinsean she knew? Miss Chu, are you satisfied after hearing this? Do you believe it? Shinsean gritted her teeth, her body trembling in pain, but she tried her best to endure and even forced a smile. Chu Qingwan took a deep breath. She looked at Shinsean, but she didn't say whether she believed it or not. Instead, she took out a piece of paper from her bag. What was this? Shinsean didn't take it. Chu Qingwan stuffed the piece of paper into her hand. This is my sister's attending doctor. He came back from the West. His medical skills are good, and he's also a good person. Shinsean lowered her head and looked at the contact information. Thank you. Go and take a look. Now I'll go with you. A trace of self-mockery flashed across Shinsean's eyes. Miss Chu doesn't believe me? Do you think that I'm lying to you about my illness? She clenched the piece of paper and straightened her back. Whether you believe it or not, what does that have to do with me? She turned around and left. But in the next moment, his body fell to the ground like a butterfly in the wind. In the hospital, everything was pure white. Shinsean slowly opened her eyes. In the next moment, she saw Chu Qingwan standing beside her with an inexplicable expression. Is this a hospital? Shinsean's voice was unusually dry and hoarse. Chu Qingwan poured her a glass of water and handed it to her. Thank you. Shinsean took the water and took a sip. You're pregnant. This one sentence was earth-shattering. The cup in Shinsean's hand fell on her body, and the water soaked the quilt on her body. Her voice trembled, but it hid her unconcealable ecstasy. What did you say? I'm pregnant. Yes, you're pregnant. The child is already more than 4 months old. It really was hard on her. She had been made difficult by Xiao Zhonghan time and time again, but nothing had happened. You didn't know? Chu Qingwan asked again. No, I didn't know. Shinsean was still in ecstasy. Chu Qingwan looked at her expression and felt a bit upset. She said, You can't keep this child. No. The corners of Shinsean's mouth lifted into a smile. She looked up at Chu Qingwan, her eyes shining. I want to keep him. Are you crazy? You have late-stage stomach cancer. You can't give birth. Chu Qingwan was shocked. Chapter 46-63. What method? Zhuowen's eyes flickered and he couldn't help but ask. In fact, he wanted to verify if the Lord of the Abyss's method of resisting the infinite calamity was feasible. The immeasurable calamity comes from the primordial star system and is a high-level energy that surpasses any realm in the chaotic starry sky. Nothing in the chaotic starry sky can withstand the immeasurable calamity. Only the primordial stones can withstand the power of the immeasurable calamity. Ma Yujie's expression was calm as he slowly explained the method to resist the immeasurable calamity. Hearing this, Zhuowen was completely relieved. Since the Lord of Deep Caves and Ma Yujie said so, it seemed that this method was indeed feasible. If I gather all the primordial stones, will I be able to mobilize the power of the primordial tree? Zhuowen asked again. Ma Yujie sneered. How can it be so easy? The primordial tree has existed since ancient times. Even the primordial gods in the primordial star system are not qualified to mobilize the power of the primordial tree. Gathering all the primordial stones only means that you have received the recognition of the primordial tree, but if you want to borrow its power, it depends on whether you are qualified. Zhuowen frowned slightly and asked, "What do you mean?" "The primordial tree has great wisdom. After you gather all the primordial stones, you are qualified to enter the primordial tree to undergo the test. Only by successfully passing the test will you have a slight chance of obtaining the qualification to borrow the primordial stones." Ma Yujie shrugged and continued, "This is also my guess. The primordial stones are too mysterious. For countless years, no one has gathered all of them. It's really rare for someone to be able to get two at once like you." Hearing this, Zhuowen fell into deep thought. He understood that the only way to borrow the power of the primordial tree was to gather all the primordial stones first. "Brother Ma, now you should tell me why you want to enter the primordial star system, right?" Zhuowen looked at Ma Yujie opposite him with a serious expression. Ma Yujie wanted to enter the primordial star system by all means, which had always made Zhuowen very curious. He had once suspected that Ma Yujie was one of the 28 ancient gods, but the latter flatly denied it. He was very curious. If Ma Yujie wasn't an archaic god, why would he go to the archaic star system? Moreover, Ma Yujie seemed to know a lot more than he did, even more than the Lord of the Abyss. It was as if he knew everything. This made Zhuowen even more curious about Ma Yujie's identity. Ma Yujie's eyes flickered as he said in a low voice, "I'll tell you the truth after we gather all the primordial stones. How about that?" Zhuowen pondered for a moment, nodded and said, "I hope you won't hide anything this time. The 100 outer realms are about to face the immeasurable calamity. Time is running out. I must know the truth." Zhuowen felt that Ma Yujie was hiding a lot of things from him. Ma Yujie's expression was solemn as he sighed softly. "Have they discovered the 100 territories so quickly? You're really haunting me." "Who are they?" Zhuowen hurriedly asked. "The truth is often very cruel. Brother Zhuo, for your own good, I suggest that you don't know," Ma Yujie said with an exceptionally serious expression. "The 100 territories is where I currently live, and there are many of my friends and family there. If I don't know the truth, how can I save the 100 territories?" Zhuowen said firmly. Ma Yujie was silent for a moment before saying, "If you really want to know, I can tell you everything, but you'll have to wait until we gather all the primordial stones." Although Zhuowen wanted to know the truth as soon as possible, he also knew that haste made waste, so he didn't force Ma Yujie to tell the truth now. "Alright, then it's a deal," Zhuowen said solemnly. "Brother Zhuo, if you don't have anything else, we can set off for the Master God world immediately." Ma Yujie seemed a little impatient as he looked straight at Zhuowen. However, Zhuowen shook his head and said, "It's hard to know whether it's a blessing or a curse when we enter the Master God world this time. Before we go, I'd like to settle some personal grudges." Zhuowen knew very well that any place where the primordial stones existed was bound to be a dangerous place. In such a place, Zhuowen wasn't even confident that he could survive. If anything happened to him, Ryuka and the Kanglan domain would definitely lose their backbone. The current Kanglan domain was still too weak, and the gap between it and the alternate ghost domain, divine spark domain, and other super domains was still too great. If the alternate ghost domain, divine spark domain, and other domains that had a grudge against him discovered his relationship with the Kanglan domain, they would definitely go on a killing spree. Therefore, as a precaution, Zhuowen decided to completely settle the grudges between the alternate ghost domain and divine spark domain before searching for the fourth primordial stone. With Zhuowen's current strength, he could almost move unhindered in the super domains, and no one was his match. "You want to find those people who chased after you before?" Ma Yujie immediately understood Zhuowen's wishful thinking. At that time, after he had tricked Zhuowen, those super domain experts had all chased after Zhuowen. Ma Yujie didn't need to think to know that Zhuowen must have a lot of resentment in his heart. Now that he had achieved success in his cultivation, it was understandable that he wanted to settle the score with them. Yes. After I've settled my grudges, I'll come find you, Zhuowen said as he stood up, but just as he left the cliff, he found that Ma Yujie was following him closely. Why are you following me? Zhuowen asked with a frown. Ma Yujie grinned. Of course I'm here to cheer you on. Back then, this group of people scolded me a lot. I want to see their miserable end. Zhuowen looked at Ma Yujie with a faint smile. Brother Ma, you seem to be very sure that I can win? Ma Yujie shrugged. Don't I know you well? You're not the kind of person who will throw away your life for nothing. Since you dare to go alone to settle the score with them, it's obvious that your strength has increased greatly and you're no longer afraid of them. Since you want to follow me, then follow me. Zhuowen nodded, but he didn't have any intention of driving Ma Yujie away. Although this fatty acted very cowardly every time, Zhuowen was very afraid of him because he couldn't see through this person's strength. This time, after his strength had increased greatly, he still felt a faint sense of threat from this fatty. It was as if no matter how much Zhuowen's strength increased, this fatty would always be a little stronger than him. It was as if this fatty had deliberately designed it. Thinking of this, Zhuowen's heart sank. It was very likely that this fatty was much stronger than him. It was just that every time he faced him, he hid most of his strength. If that was really the case, this fatty was really too terrifying. After leaving the extraterritorial battlefield, Zhuowen took out an ordinary divine warship. After Ma Yujie boarded, Zhuowen personally piloted the divine warship towards the other ghost domain. Chapter 46-64. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin Deviant Ghost City. A month later, Zhuowen's divine ship arrived at Fire Ghost City. Fire Ghost City was the second largest city in the Deviant Ghost domain. It was the main trading city in the Deviant Ghost domain and had the largest port. It was a must-visit city for business cultivators. When Zhuowen first took the commercial divine ship to the Void Yama domain, he passed by this city. However, he was discovered before he could step into the city and was forced to escape into the depths of the dark ruins. As Zhuowen and Ma Yujie had disguised themselves, they entered Fire Ghost City without a hitch. Have you heard? The 3 deviant ghost kings have taken in a new adopted son. It is said that he is another monstrous genius. This time, the 3 deviant ghost kings are holding a conferring ceremony for this adopted son. It is said that they have invited all the heroes in the world to gather their luck for this adopted son. The 3 deviant ghost kings are really lucky. They have obtained another monstrous genius. Back then, the naughty Shiva was so stunning. Now, his name is known all over the world. If this new adopted son can reach Sakyamuni's achievements, the deviant ghost domain will leave the divine spark domain behind in the future. With the deviant ghost domain's current trend, it is indeed showing signs of becoming the #1 domain of the supreme domains. Of course, this will have to wait for Sakyamuni and the new adopted son to fully mature. As soon as Zhuowen and Ma Yujie entered Fire Ghost City, they immediately heard many people discussing the same matter. And this matter was that the 3 deviant ghost kings were holding a conferring ceremony for their new adopted son. The naughty Shiva is indeed not bad. If I'm not wrong, that fellow's Tao root is not ordinary. It seems like it can continuously evolve. Ma Yujie sighed and continued, if the 3 deviant ghost kings really find another genius who is not weaker than Sakyamuni, the deviant ghost domain will be incredible in the future. Zhuowen's expression was indifferent as he said, I think there won't be a second ancestral Tao root like Sakyamuni. Zhuowen had battled Sakyamuni several times, and he was well aware of how terrifying Sakyamuni's Tao root was. Such an ancestral Tao root could be considered to be one of a kind even in the chaotic starry sky. He didn't want the 3 variant Ghost Kings to be able to find another genius whose natural talent wasn't inferior to Sakyamuni. Ma Yujia nodded and said, "You're right. Sakyamuni's ancestral Tao root had the potential to become a primeval god. There might not even be one in the entire starry chaos for countless years. Looks like the 3 deviant Ghost Kings will all be attending this conferring ceremony. This saves me the trouble of looking for them one by one." Zhuowen sneered. After asking around, Zhuowen found out that the conferring ceremony would be held in 2 months, and it would be held at the largest city in the Variant Ghost region, Variant Ghost City. Because most of the regions in the Variant Ghost region were covered in numerous restrictions that restricted flight, cultivators were unable to fly casually in the Variant Ghost region, and they could only travel between the various cities through some unique means of transportation in the Variant Ghost region. Needless to say, such rules were extremely wise indeed, and it prevented many cultivators with ill intentions from taking improper actions. After all, once cultivators caused trouble in the Variant Ghost region, they would be utterly unable to fly, and it would be extremely easy for them to be surrounded and captured by the experts of the Variant Ghost region. The Ghost Chariot was a unique means of transportation in the Variant Ghost region. The Ghost Chariot's appearance was extremely large and square, and it was capable of accommodating a few tens of people at a time. Every single Ghost Chariot had a corresponding ghost summon, and these ghost summons summoned the ghosts they'd raised to push the Ghost Chariot forward. Even though the Ghost Chariot's speed couldn't be considered to be fast, it was extremely stable. Moreover, the ticket price was extremely cheap, and it was a must-have choice for many ordinary cultivators in the Variant Ghost region. Zhuowen and Ma Yujia purchased tickets to head to Variant Ghost City. When they entered the Ghost Chariot, they found that it was filled with cultivators. The 2 of them found an empty seat in a remote corner and sat down as if nothing had happened. In front of the 2 of them, there were 2 people sitting opposite them, a man and a woman. The man was extremely handsome, while the woman was average-looking. The moment Zhuowen and Ma Yujia saw the female cultivator opposite them, they narrowed their eyes slightly. Their eyes were extremely sharp, and they could tell at a glance that this ordinary-looking female cultivator was definitely in disguise. This woman seemed to deliberately not want others to see her beautiful appearance, and had disguised herself as ugly. Perhaps she noticed that Zhuowen and Ma Yujia were both looking at her. The female cultivator lowered her head slightly, not daring to look at Zhuowen and Ma Yujia. "The 2 of you, aren't you being too rude by staring at my Tao companion like this?" The handsome male cultivator also noticed Zhuowen and Ma Yujia opposite him. He grabbed the slender waist of the female cultivator beside him and looked at Zhuowen and Ma Yujia with an unfriendly expression. Ma Yujia chuckled and said, "Fellow Taoist, you've misunderstood. We just feel that your Tao companion looks too ordinary and is not compatible with you at all." Zhuowen did not say anything and only silently looked at the pair of Tao companions in front of him. He noticed that the moment the female cultivator was pulled into the man's embrace, there was a slight resistance, and her beautiful eyebrows were slightly furrowed. This detail only flashed by for a moment, and the female cultivator returned to normal. When the man heard Ma Yujia's words, he clearly enjoyed it. He raised his chin slightly and said, "You're right, but who told me to be so sentimental? I don't dislike my Tao companion." With that, the man pulled the female cultivator into his embrace and deliberately lowered his voice. "Shuang, don't you think so?" The female cultivator's delicate body trembled violently. She took a deep breath and nodded lightly. "The 2 of you are also going to Variant Ghost City?" Zhuowen suddenly asked with a smile. "That's right. We plan to go to Variant Ghost City for the conferment ceremony. You might not know, but the main character of the ceremony is my sworn brother." When the handsome young man said this, the corners of his mouth curled up, and his face was filled with pride. His words were not soft, and the entire ghost car could hear them clearly. The passengers in the ghost car could not help but look at the handsome young man. Their eyes were all different. Some were puzzled, some were shocked, some were suspicious, and so on. Oh? So you're that powerful? Ma Yujie raised his eyebrows and said meaningfully. I know you don't believe me. However, when we reach Variant Ghost City, you'll know how laughable your suspicions are. The handsome young man sneered and sat in his original seat, not saying anything else. On the other hand, the female cultivator beside him trembled non-stop, as if she was afraid of something. Next, the ghost summoning envoy boarded the ghost car. After a series of wails and howls, countless ghosts appeared and began to push the ghost car forward. Along the way, the handsome young man spoke very little, and the female cultivator lowered her head and did not say a word. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie closed their eyes and rested silently. After more than a month of non-stop galloping, the ghost car finally arrived at Variant Ghost City. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie walked out of the ghost car and looked at the huge city in front of them. The corners of their mouths revealed a meaningful sneer. Let's go. You stinking woman, why aren't you leaving? Do you believe that I won't kill you? Suddenly, the conversation between the man and woman on the ghost car attracted the attention of Zhuowen and Ma Yujie. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 46-65. The next day. Sure enough, Xiao Zhonghan set up a stage inside the residence and invited Miss Chu inside to watch the opera. The man hugged the beauty as he sat at the head of the table. The servants below all lowered their heads, not daring to breathe loudly. Qing Wan, this grape is very sweet. You should also try one. Out of the corner of his eye, Xiao Zhonghan caught a glimpse of a sleeve outside the door. The corners of his mouth hooked wickedly, but the words he spoke were incomparably gentle. Shinxin's footsteps paused as her eyes fell on the man's handsome face. A sour feeling suddenly rose from the bottom of her heart. In the 7 years they had been married, he had never treated her so gently. As if sensing her gaze, the man lifted his eyes without the slightest trace of gentleness. This commander and Qing Wan have already waited for a long time. Why did you only come out now? Do you feel wronged by singing for this commander? His eyes were full of ridicule. Shinxin's face was pale. No. Forcefully suppressing the bitterness in her heart, she flung her long sleeves and her voice rose in spirals. Following her voice, Xiao Zhonghan's expression became increasingly unsightly and the hand holding Chu Qingwan's waist also tightened. Young commander. Chu Qingwan lifted her eyes to look at him. However, he seemed to have heard nothing. His eyes narrowed as he coldly stared at the thin figure below. I didn't expect that Governor Shin's daughter would be so decent in her opera performance. Shinxin's eyelashes trembled. No matter what it was, as long as he said it, she would do it. But it was precisely this kind of obedience, this kind of resignation that caused Xiao Zhonghan's heart to abruptly rise with a monstrous fury. Someone come. Young commander. Go, bring over 1,000 coins. Yes. The servant hastily accepted the order and left. The remaining servants were even more terrified. Only Chu Qingwan looked at Xiao Zhonghan with a pensive gaze. Soon, the man came up with a large tray. On the tray there was a lot of steel. Xiao Zhonghan looked at the coins and suddenly released Chu Qingwan's arm to take the tray. Young commander. A voice sounded and Xiao Zhonghan's gaze turned over. Chu Qingwan's voice was probing. You truly hate her. Xiao Zhonghan's cold eyes narrowed. Naturally. If she dies, what will happen to the young commander? Chu Qingwan asked almost instinctively. Xiao Zhonghan's eyes flashed as he shot a glance at the woman who was still singing. His voice abruptly turned ice-cold. If she dies, this marshal will drape himself in red decorations and hold a banquet to celebrate. As soon as he finished speaking, he moved his hand, and the room was filled with the sound of pendants bouncing about. Shinxin, you sang very well today. This 1,000 yuan is my reward to you. Then he turned around and left. Behind him, Shinsean's footsteps were disturbed by the rolling pieces of steel. She fell heavily to the ground, but she didn't even cry out in pain. She just kept her head lowered, and the tears and despair in her eyes could no longer be hidden. After a long while, "Madam, the young commander has already left," Chu Qingwan said. Shinsean didn't raise her head. She just nodded her head and propped herself up. She turned around and walked straight with what little self-respect she had left. However, she had only taken 2 steps when a voice filled with pity and compassion called out to her from behind. "Madam." She paused. "Good and evil will eventually be repaid. Actually, Madam doesn't need to feel sorry for yourself. When you schemed against the young commander and your own sister in the past, you should have long thought of today's situation." Swish. The color of blood instantly receded from Shinsean's face. Chapter 46-66. This is a grand array at the early 4th heaven of the eternal realm. How could it be broken so easily? Su Juan's pupils shrank slightly, revealing a look of disbelief. He stared at Zhuowen, who was walking slowly into the mansion. He saw with his own eyes that the harmless-looking young man in front of him had shattered the grand formation around his residence with just a single step. Even a divine array master at the 4th heaven of the eternal realm couldn't do this. "How dare you!" At the gate of the mansion, many servants jumped up and launched a thunderous attack at Zhuowen. Zhuowen's expression was calm as he lightly punched out with his right palm. Surging divine energy gushed out, and a series of miserable shrieks rang out as the servants were sent flying. "Su Juanza, I'll give you a chance. Take us to the ceremony site during the conferring ceremony." Zhuowen looked indifferently at Su Juanza in front of him and said in a flat tone. Su Juanza's pupils shrank slightly. "What do you want to do?" "Kill the 3 kings of Deviant Ghost," Zhuowen said lightly. "What? Are you kidding?" Su Juanza was startled at first, but then he sneered. The 3 kings of Deviant Ghost were the most powerful existences in the Deviant Ghost realm. They were the top masters of the 9 major realms. This person was too arrogant to say that he wanted to kill the 3 kings of Deviant Ghost. Bang! As soon as Su Juanza finished speaking, a palm fell on his chest. Puff! Su Juanza spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward, crashing into the pavilions behind him. Lord Su. In the mansion, many servants were shocked, but they didn't dare to help Su Juanza. Because Zhuowen's terrifying aura had completely locked on everyone present, so they didn't dare to move at all. Who are you?" Su Juanza's eyes were filled with fear. He struggled to stand up and stared at Zhuowen. He was at the peak of the inverse ancient starlight realm, but he couldn't see Zhuowen's attack at all. He knew that the reason for this was that the gap between him and Su Juanza was too big. "Zhuowen," Zhuowen said calmly. "What? Are you Zhuowen?" The moment he heard Zhuowen's name, Su Juanza turned pale with fright. He knelt on the ground, trembling. How could he not have heard of Zhuowen's name? In the alien battlefield, Zhuowen had killed so many lawful embodiment of heaven and earth experts. Even the ruler of the Bloodthorn domain, the bloodthirsty king, was killed by this kid. This showed how strong this kid was. It could be said that this kid was an expert on the same level as the 3 variant Ghost Kings, so how could he possibly go against him? "Su Juanza, my patience is limited. I'll count to 3. If you don't cooperate with me, you'll die immediately." Zhuowen clasped his hands behind his back and looked down at Su Juanza, who was kneeling in the ruins in front of him. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Su Juanza could feel the intense killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes and his body trembled. He immediately bowed and said, "I'm willing to cooperate." Now, he had no other choice. If he didn't cooperate, he would definitely die. "Make a heavenly oath," Zhuowen said indifferently. Su Juanza sighed in his heart. He could only follow Zhuowen's instructions and make a heavenly oath. "Next, we'll stay here until the conferring ceremony begins." As for the people in your mansion, you can do as you deem fit. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie stepped into the mansion. Zhuowen's indifferent eyes swept across the kneeling servants and said calmly. Su Juanzi quickly bowed and said, Sir, don't worry. No one will spread this matter. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded and calmly entered the depths of the mansion with Ma Yujie. After Zhuowen and Ma Yujie left, Su Juanzi raised his head and looked coldly at the surrounding servants. Today you didn't see or hear anything. If anyone speaks of today's matter, I'll kill all 9 generations of his family. Su Juanzi said indifferently. We wouldn't dare. Many servants bowed their heads and said that they wouldn't dare. You'd better not. After Su Juanzi finished speaking, he suddenly waved his sleeve, and a terrifying divine power surged out, like countless hidden weapons explosively shooting out. These bowed servants didn't expect Su Juanzi to suddenly attack. They were all hit and beheaded. After killing all of the servants, Su Juanzi called for the other servants and cleaned up the corpses of the servants. Time flew by. Today was the conferring ceremony of Alien Ghost City. The entire Alien Ghost City was bustling with noise and excitement. It was very festive. The conferring ceremony could be said to be an unprecedented grand event in the alternate ghost realm. Outside Su Juanzi's mansion, a magnificent carriage had already been prepared and stopped outside the red lacquered gate. After Su Juanzi walked out of the mansion, he respectfully led the way for the 2 people behind him. One of them was a black-clothed youth, while the other was a plump fatty. These 2 people were naturally Zhuowen and Ma Yujie. After the 2 entered the carriage, Su Juanzi was the last to enter. The space in the carriage was large enough to accommodate more than 10 people. The 4 walls of the carriage were inlaid with gorgeous and dazzling treasures. My lords, there will be many experts from the alien ghost realm present at the conferring ceremony. Are you really going to make a move at the ceremony? In the carriage, Su Juanzi looked at the 2 people in front of him and asked with a nervous expression. Of course. You just have to go through with the conferring ceremony. Don't worry about us, Zhuowen said indifferently. Su Juanzi quickly nodded, but his heart was full of worry. As the adopted son of the 3 kings of Alien Ghost, he was the well-deserved protagonist of this conferring ceremony. Now, he had brought the sworn enemy of the 3 kings of Alien Ghost. If his adoptive father knew about this, he was afraid that they would not let him off easily. Sigh. Now I can only take one step at a time. Su Juanzi sighed softly and murmured to himself. In the central area of Alien Ghost City there was a vast square. In the center of the square stood a bluestone platform. At this moment there was a sea of people around the platform. It was very lively. Today was the conferring ceremony, so it naturally attracted many experts from the alien ghost realm to come and watch. In front of the bluestone platform, there were 3 magnificent main seats. At this moment, 3 stalwart figures were sitting on these 3 main seats. Countless cultivators around the high platform looked at the 3 figures with awe and respect in their eyes. Because these 3 figures were none other than the true rulers of the alien ghost realm, the 3 kings of Alien Ghost. Haha. Big brother, congratulations to you. You actually found another good seedling. The Ice Ghost King sat on the far right. He cupped his hands and congratulated the Ice Demon King sitting in the middle. The Divine Ghost King also hurriedly said, Third brother is right. Big brother is very lucky. Not only did you take in a peerless genius like Sakyamuni, but now you have a monstrous genius like Su Juanzi. The Ice Demon King's mouth curled up slightly, but he said modestly, You 2 brothers are too kind. Su Juanzi's talent is indeed not bad, but there is still a gap between him and Sakyamuni. An ancestral Tao root like his was truly hard to come by in countless years. This is not my personal fortune, but the fortune of our entire alien ghost realm. Hearing this, the Ice Ghost King and the Divine Ghost King nodded repeatedly. It's here, it's here. Su Juanzi's carriage is here. Suddenly, a commotion came from below the high platform. The three kings of Alien Ghost could not help but look over. They found that the crowd in front of them had all opened up a path. A huge carriage slowly drove over towards the high platform. Chapter 46-67. The carriage passed through the crowd and finally stopped in front of the high platform in the middle of the square. The three ghost kings looked at the carriage and nodded to themselves. Su Juanza was the genius that all three of them thought highly of. Although there was a gap between him and Sakyamuni, he would be able to become a giant in the future and support the entire alternate ghost realm. The bead curtain in front of the carriage gradually opened, and a tall figure walked out. In an instant, this figure attracted the attention of countless people around. Many people even came forward to catch a glimpse of Su Juanza. Ice Demon King, Divine Ghost King. Long time no see. The moment this figure walked out of the carriage, he slowly spoke with a bone-chilling tone. The three ghost kings, who were originally smiling, froze the moment they saw this figure. Juan? Why are you here? The Ice Demon King and the Ghost Child opened their eyes wide and looked at the young man who suddenly appeared outside the carriage in disbelief. Not only were the three Ghost Kings stunned, but all the cultivators in the square were also stunned. They never thought that an unfamiliar young man would come out of the carriage that was supposed to be Su Juanza's. The Ice Demon King's voice was not soft, and everyone in the square heard it clearly. They finally knew the identity of this unfamiliar young man. Juan? Could it be that Juan who killed many people in the extraterritorial battlefield? It's very likely. This Juan is truly as bold as an ox. He actually dared to come to the alternate ghost domain alone. Could it be that he's courting death? The square was in an uproar. Everyone was talking and looking strangely at the young man in front of the carriage. They had heard of many of Juan's glorious deeds. They knew that this person had killed many lawful embodiment of heaven and earth expert. Even the bloodthirsty king of the Bloodthorn realm had died in his hands. However, this was the core of the alternate ghost realm, the alternate ghost city, the home of the three ghost kings. It had a unique geographical advantage. This Juan actually came here alone. If that wasn't courting death, then what was? Juan, where is Su Juanza? The Ice Demon King's face was cold, and killing intent flowed in his eyes as he asked Juan coldly. Don't worry. Su Juanza will not die. The ones who will die will be the three of you. Juan said calmly. You three little bastards, do you still recognize me? Today, Lord Fatty is here to see how you will die. Another fat figure came out of the carriage. His small eyes, which were squeezed together by his fat, looked wretchedly at the three kings. The faces of the three kings darkened. Of course, they knew this fatty. Back in the ruins of the foreign battlefield, they had been played around by this fatty. If they weren't in a hurry to kill Juan and seize the domain origin fragment, how could they have let this fatty escape so easily? Godfather, I'm sorry, I had no choice. Inside the carriage, Su Juanza trembled as he walked out. He lowered his head, not daring to look at the three variant ghost kings. The Ice Fiend King's expression was calm. He looked at Juan and said, Let Su Juanza go, and I can leave both of your corpses intact. Juan joked, Ice Fiend King, are you so sure that you can kill us? The Ice Fiend King sneered, Juan, I admit that you are very strong. If we were outside, the three of us would not be able to do anything to you. But in the alternate ghost domain, you will die without a doubt. Juan shook his head and laughed. He suddenly waved his sleeve, and a surge of divine power swept out and entered Su Juanza's body. Su Juanza let out a shrill scream, and his entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Even his divine soul was crushed. He couldn't be more dead. You can't kill me. And today, I'm here to kill all of you. Juan said calmly. The Ice Fiend King, the Ice Ghost King, and the Divine Ghost King were stunned at first, and then they were completely enraged. Zhuowen, you are really courting death. The Ice Fiend King's eyes were red. He waved his sleeve, and suddenly, countless talismans appeared in the square. They swept out and formed a circle of boundary. I want you to die with Su Juanza. The Ice Fiend King formed a seal with both hands, and suddenly, the talismans formed an extremely terrifying killing array. Within the killing formation, the 100 ghosts parade whistled through the air, bringing with them an intense killing intent. They instantly entangled Zhuo and Ma Yujie. It's the alternate ghost ultimate killing array. This is the top killing array of the alternate ghost clan. It is said that it has reached the peak of the 4th sky of the Eternal Realm, and is not far from the 5th sky of the Eternal Realm. Zhuowen is dead for sure. With this array and the 3 alternate ghost kings working together, he will die even if he doesn't die. The instant the killing array was activated, everyone around the square retreated one after another, their gazes aghast as they watched this scene. No one thought that Zhuowen could withstand this wave of attack. At the same time, the Ice Fiend King, the Ice Ghost King, and the Divine Ghost King all rushed out and attacked Zhuowen from 3 directions. They wanted to kill him with one blow. Insignificant skill. Zhuowen's expression was calm as he took a light step forward. Crack, crack, crack. A series of muffled sounds rang out, and then the huge killing array collapsed with a loud bang. The countless ghosts lingering around all collapsed and disappeared. What? The killing array is broken? Everyone in the square was dumbfounded and looked at the scene in disbelief. This was a killing array at the peak of the 4th sky of the Eternal Realm. Only a divine array master at the 5th sky of the Eternal Realm could break it so easily. After the killing array disappeared, everyone could see the battle on the high platform clearly. The 3 variant Ghost Kings spread out from 3 different directions, closing in on Zhuowen. The first to arrive was the Ice Fiend King. His law phenomenon was more than 1,000,000 feet tall, and he was covered in ice armor. He held a huge ice crystal halberd in his hand and rushed forward. With the halberd in his hand, he stabbed at Zhuowen's glabella. A terrifying wind swept out, causing the surrounding space to collapse and shatter. Zhuowen suddenly looked up, and his aura erupted like a terrifying eruption of a volcano. His body grew 10 feet tall, and in an instant, he was 9,000,000 feet tall. His size was far beyond the law phenomenon of the 3 alternate Ghost Kings. Rip! Zhuowen's right palm slammed out and landed on the ice crystal halberd. Then, the Ice Fiend King was horrified to find that his ice crystal halberd was crumbling inch by inch, and a terrifying force swept over. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. He landed on the ground far away, creating a huge crater. The moment the Ice Fiend King was repelled, the Divine Ghost King and the Ice Fiend King attacked from the left and right. The 2 of them wielded their natal divine weapons and mercilessly stabbed at Zhuowen's temples. If Zhuowen's head was pierced by the 2 of them, his lawful embodiment of heaven and earth would definitely explode. Zhuowen's expression was calm. He spread his hands to both sides and grabbed the 2 life-bound divine artifacts. Crack! With a gentle twist, his natal divine artifact shattered. What? Not only did you break through the law phenomenon, but you're also at the peak of the law phenomenon. And why is your law phenomenon so huge? The Ice Fiend King looked at this scene in disbelief, and couldn't help but cry out in shock. Zhuowen didn't answer him directly. He opened his hands and pressed them on the Ice Fiend King and the Divine Ghost King's chest. This press seemed simple, but it contained an unprecedented amount of power. The Ice Fiend King and the Divine Ghost King's chests caved in. In the end, Zhuowen's palm pierced through. Bang! Then, the 2 of them flew backward. Their massive law phenomenon kept exploding, shrinking 10 feet by 10 feet, and finally collapsed into nothingness. Even their souls weren't spared. They completely died just like that. In an instant, the whole place was silent. Chapter 46-68. Everyone on the square stared blankly at the scene. Everyone did not expect that the deviant ghost three kings joining hands was actually so easily broken by Zhuo. Zhuo had only used 2 moves to severely injure the Ice Demon King and kill the God Ghost King and the Ice Ghost King. What kind of power was this? Ice Demon King, I'll kill you! The moment Zhuo killed the God Ghost King and the Ice Wraith King, he took a step forward and shot towards the Ice Wraith King. His lawful embodiment of heaven and earth was too powerful. The Ice Demon King's lawful embodiment of heaven and earth was as small as a child in front of it. Run! The Ice Fiend King decisively fled into the distance. He was very clearly aware that Zhuo was too strong at this moment, and he was utterly not a match for him. If he didn't leave now, he would definitely die. You can't escape. Zhuo pinched the void with his right hand. Suddenly, countless formation runes appeared within 100 million miles, completely blocking the Ice Demon King's escape route. After his formation skills reached the 5th sky of the Eternal Realm, he could easily set up a formation at the 4th sky of the Eternal Realm. Bang! The Ice Demon King crashed into the formation runes. He grunted and flew backward. The moment he was sent flying, Zhuo took a step forward and slapped out with his right palm, carrying a shocking aura. No! The Ice Fiend King roared. He pushed his palms forward, and all his god power poured out like a tsunami. Crack! The 2 sides collided, and the crisp sound of bones cracking was heard. The Ice Demon King's palms couldn't withstand Zhuo's terrifying power. They twisted and broke. Zhuo's palm was like a hot knife through butter. After crushing the Ice Demon King's palms, it slammed into the Ice Demon King's chest. Boom! The Ice Fiend King's chest instantly caved in. His eyes were wide open as he stared at Zhuo. Crash! Zhuo pressed down again, and the Ice Fiend King screamed in pain. He fell from the sky in a sorry state, creating a huge crater in the ground. Zhuo landed lightly on the ground and walked to the edge of the deep pit. He looked down at the twitching Ice Fiend King who was on the verge of death and said, "This is the cycle of karma. What goes around comes around. Ice Demon King, you didn't expect this day to come, did you?" The Ice Demon King raised his head and looked at Zhuo in fear. He didn't expect Zhuo to become so powerful in just 100 years. Other ghost clans, listen to my order. Kill him at all costs. The Ice Fiend King suddenly screamed. He took out a pitch-black flute from his bosom and threw it out. Suddenly, countless black fog spread out from the flute. Countless ghosts and monsters were hidden within the black fog, and they charged at Zhuo. Kill! 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 At the same time, many experts of the deviant ghost clan pounced forward, charging towards Zhuo fearlessly. Child's play. Zhuo waved his right hand lightly, and the countless ghosts that rushed out of the flute were all refined into energy, which flowed into his limbs and bones. He slapped with his left hand, and the 100 or so ghost clans practitioners at the front were all turned into dust. Just like that, Zhuo took one step after another. Every step he took could kill hundreds of people. He took more than 10 steps in a row, and nearly 10,000 people had died at his hand. Many of the ghost clans were scared out of their wit. They looked at Zhuo with fear. Zhuo was too strong. No matter how many people came, they couldn't withstand a single slap from him. "Zhuo, kill me if you want, but please let my clansmen go." The Ice Demon King looked at the scene in front of him with an ashen face. He knew that even if all the ghost clans attacked together, they wouldn't be able to take down Zhuo. Therefore, he immediately changed his strategy and planned to ask Zhuo to let his clansmen go. "Let your clansmen go?" Zhuo sneered and continued. "Then have you ever let the Panga clan go?" "What? You're from the Panga clan?" The Ice Demon King's face turned pale. He looked at Zhuo in disbelief. How could he not know about the Panga clan? Back then, the other ghost clan was able to become a transcendent realm because they destroyed the Panga clan and devoured the territory and resources of the Panga realm. That was how they finally succeeded in becoming a transcendent realm. I'm not from the Panga clan, but I once received the inheritance of a senior from the Panga clan, so I owe him a favor. When I have the ability, I will avenge the Panga clan. Zhuowen walked over slowly and stepped on the Ice Demon King's chest. He continued, "Now, repent in front of the countless souls of the Panga clan." The Ice Demon King laughed, and it was a crazy laugh. "Ah, Zhuowen, you're dreaming. The 100 Outer Territories is a cruel world. I'm strong, so I can plunder and kill as I wish. The Panga clan is only weak in my eyes, so they deserve to be replaced by the Ghost clans." The Ice Demon King roared crazily. Zhuowen's expression was cold. He silently looked down at the Ice Demon King under his feet. Suddenly, he lifted his foot and stomped down heavily. "Since you won't apologize, I'll wipe out the entire Ghost clan." Zhuowen's expression was calm. He waved his sleeve, and a formation disc flew out and enveloped the entire Ghost City. "No. Don't kill me. Save me." The instant the huge killing array was laid out, Deviant Ghost City turned into a miserable purgatory. All the creatures in different Ghost City were under the threat of the power of the killing array. Any weak cultivator basically died in the blink of an eye in the killing array. The stronger cultivators were also struggling to resist the attacks of the killing formation. They could die in the formation at any time. "Zhuowen, you're despicable," the Ice Demon King said with an ugly expression. "I'm despicable?" Zhuowen laughed and said coldly, "Why didn't you say you were despicable when you wiped out the Panga clan? I'm only here to collect the debt on behalf of the Panga clan. I want you to apologize for your mistakes, and I'm despicable? Ice Demon King, you're really hopeless. Now, let me ask you, are you going to apologize or not? If you don't, your entire Ghost Clan can go to hell and apologize to the Panga Clan's heroic spirits." The Ice Demon King clenched his fists tightly. He roared at the sky and knelt in front of Zhuowen. "Zhuowen, I'm sorry. I was wrong, please spare my clansmen." Zhuowen looked on coldly and said, "I'm not asking you to apologize to me. I'm asking you to apologize to the Panga Clan's heroic spirits who died. I was wrong. I was really wrong. I shouldn't have wiped out the Panga Clan. I was really wrong." The Ice Demon King lowered his head and roared. "Since you know you were wrong, kill yourself now," Zhuowen said indifferently. The Ice Demon King raised his head and stared at Zhuowen. "If I kill myself, will you spare my clansmen?" "I won't kill them," Zhuowen said indifferently. "All right." The Ice Demon King nodded heavily. Chapter 46-69. Dr. G. A smile hung on Chu Qingwan's face, and even her ears were flushed. Shen Xin watched in a daze. It seemed that many years ago, when she looked at Xiao Zhonghan, she often revealed this expression, "Miss Chu should like this Dr. G. Right?" Shen Xin looked at Dr. G. His figure was tall and straight, and when she looked at him, he also coincidentally extended his hand. "Hello, I'm GMO." It was inevitable that people who returned from studying abroad would have some Western habits. Shen Xin was happy for Chu Qingwan. This kind of person was indeed worthy of entrusting her life to. While her thoughts were in a mess, Chu Qingwan had already told GMO of Shen Xin's plans. After GMO heard this, his expression became somewhat serious. He turned to look at Shen Xin. "Have you really thought it through? If you insist on keeping the child, the chances of the child surviving are not high, and you definitely won't be able to keep your life. If you abort the child now, you still have a sliver of a chance to live. And what are the chances of the child surviving?" Shen Xin's expression was earnest. "Almost zero." "Zero." Shen Xin's face rapidly paled. The air seemed to freeze, and no one spoke. After a long time, she took a deep breath. When she raised her eyes to look at GMO again, her eyes were filled with determination. "Thank you for your trouble." GMO's expression was complicated. This woman was willing to give up hope for a nearly zero chance of survival. Should he call her foolish or noble? His lips moved, but in the end, he swallowed his words of persuasion. Okay, then I'll prescribe some medicine. Take it with you and take it on time. If there are any problems, you must contact me. Okay, thank you. After returning from the hospital, Shen Xin carefully hid the medicine GMO prescribed for her. She looked at her relatively flat stomach, and the corners of her mouth revealed a trace of a smile. Since that day, in a place where Xiao Zhonghan couldn't see, Shen Xin and Chu Qingwan's relationship became closer and closer. Sometimes, Chu Qingwan would take her to the hospital for checkups, and sometimes they would eat together. Shen Xin had a stomach problem, so she couldn't touch spicy or stimulating things. Chu Qingwan actually personally cooked some moderately hard porridge for her, striving to ensure that the child in her stomach was nutritious. Today's yam porridge. It's still hot, eat it later. Chu Qingwan placed the porridge in front of Shen Xin. She was wearing an apron, and with her charming face, she looked out of place. Shen Xin, on the other hand, only wanted to cry in her entire life. This was the first time she had been treated so carefully by someone. This was the first time she had felt such warmth. She was at a loss and didn't know what she could do to repay him. Chu Qingwan took off her apron. It's about time. Drink it quickly. I can't let my son starve. You. Shen Xin was shocked. You want to adopt him? You're not willing? Chu Qingwan raised her eyebrows. Or do you think my status isn't high enough? Of course not. Shen Xin said subconsciously, but you're an unmarried woman. How can you raise a child? You'll attract a lot of criticism. But I'm a woman. Do you think I don't attract enough criticism? Chu Qingwan flipped her hair nonchalantly. They're jealous of my beauty. Oh. Shen Xin held back her laughter and nodded. After taking 2 mouthfuls of porridge, he suddenly raised his head. How do you know it's a son? What if it's a daughter? It's all the same. Chu Qingwan sat across from her and stared straight at her. Shen Xin felt uncomfortable under her stare. She looked at her clothes and wiped the corners of her mouth. What's wrong? Was there something wrong? Nothing. Okay. Shen Xin drank the porridge. Suddenly, the spoon in her hand moved, and a soft poached egg floated up from below. Her heart skipped a beat, and she looked at Chu Qingwan. Happy birthday! Chu Qingwan smiled and raised her hand under the table. A small cake appeared in front of her. I made this myself. I asked GMO. He said you can eat it. Shen Xin's hand that was holding the spoon trembled slightly. Her nose felt sour. For a moment, she didn't know whether she should cry or laugh. Wait, I'll light a candle, Chu Qingwan said as she went to get a candle. Shen Xin took the opportunity to wipe away the tears in her eyes. Chu Qingwan inserted the candle and lit it. The small candle flame reflected Shen Xin's thin and pale face. That day, Shen Xin had a very happy time. Although she came from a good family, she had never had a playmate of the same age. Although Shen Xingyue was her half-sister, her mother died because of Shen Xingyue's mother, and she was very distant from her. Although her father loved her, he didn't have time to accompany her. Chapter 46-70. After arriving at Divine Spark City, Zhuowen waved his sleeve and summoned a white jade cauldron. Above the white jade cauldron, a beautiful woman in white slowly emerged. It was the cauldron's artifact spirit Xianya. Xianya, I've arrived at Divine Spark City. Now tell me about Qing Qishou's background and where he is. Zhuowen looked at Xianya and asked. Back then, he had promised Xianya that once he was strong enough, he would avenge her master. Now that he had come to Divine Spark City, he naturally didn't intend to let Qing Qishou go. It could be considered as him repaying Jing Hongwen's unfulfilled wish. Xianya looked at Zhuowen with a complicated expression and felt ashamed. Back then, she had promised Zhuo Wen that she would help the latter step into the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. Later on, she discovered that Zhuo Wen did not need to rely on her strength to successfully reach the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. Moreover, he was at the peak of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. That Qing Qishou's background is extraordinary. He's an expert from one of the two great families of Divine Spark City, the Qing Ming family. My master's family was far inferior to the Qing Ming family and was plotted against by Qing Qishou. I hope young noble Zhuo can avenge my master. Xianya bowed deeply to Zhuo Wen, her tone sincere. Don't worry. Part of the reason I'm here is to repay Jing Hongwen's favor. Tell me about the Qing Ming family in detail. Zhuo Wen said to Xianya as he walked into the city. Divine Spark City was even grander than Variant Ghost City. It was made up of 33 giant cities. At first glance, it looked as if there were many hidden beasts, exuding a terrifying aura. With Xianya's explanation, Zhuo Wen gradually understood the cause and effect of the matter and also the location of the Qing Ming family. It was said that the Qing Ming family's ancestor and the Divine Spark clan's Golden Sovereign Law King were sworn brothers and had a very good relationship. Therefore, the Qing Ming family acted tyrannically in Divine Spark City without any restrictions, causing their people to become increasingly arrogant. When Qing Qishou domineeringly destroyed Jing Hongwen's family, the Divine Spark clan simply stood by and watched. Many powers in the city were angry at the Qing Ming family, but they didn't dare to offend them. They knew very well that the Qing Ming family had the backing of Jinzhu and Shakyamuni. There was no way they could fight against him, and they could only accept it. Master, this is the Qing Ming family. When Zhuo Wen and Ma Yujie stopped in front of a huge and luxurious mansion, Xianya's voice resounded in Zhuo Wen's mind. Zhuo Wen raised his head to take a look and discovered that on the signboard at the entrance of the mansion, 2 large words were written: Destiny. Get lost. All of you, scram. Suddenly, from the back of the main street, a group of more than 10 cavalrymen majestically arrived. Their leader was a young female cultivator wearing a blue gauze skirt. The female cultivator was quite beautiful. Her skin was as white as snow, but there was a baleful aura between her brows, which destroyed her overall beauty. What surprised Zhuo Wen even more was that these cavalrymen were riding divine chariots at the level of an I Gu Xingguang. The female cultivator's cultivation was only at the divine chariot level, but she could ride such a divine chariot. Her background was probably not simple. These divine chariots could fly in the sky and burrow into the ground, but what made Zhuo Wen frown was that the female cultivator purposely rode the cavalrymen on the main street and rammed them into the cultivators who were strolling on the street. Many of the cultivators hastily dodged, but even more were knocked off their feet by the collision. Some were even killed by the collision. Ah! A bunch of trash. The female cultivator sneered and headed straight for the Qing Ming mansion. Zhuo Wen and Ma Yujie were standing outside the mansion. The female cultivator naturally saw them, but she had no intention of stopping. Instead, she sped up. Zhuo Wen frowned, thinking that this female cultivator was truly arrogant and insufferably arrogant. The two of them lightly stepped on the ground, dodging the female cultivator's rampage. Who told you to dodge? You're courting death. Seeing that Zhuo Wen and Ma Yujie had dodged, the female cultivator was flustered and exasperated. She took out a divine sword and shot it at Zhuo Wen and Ma Yujie. Zhuo Wen frowned. This female cultivator was really rude and unreasonable. They had only dodged subconsciously, but she attacked in anger. Bang! Just as Zhuo Wen was about to attack, Ma Yujie made the first move. He sent the divine sword flying with a single palm strike. Stupid woman! What's wrong with dodging? Am I in your way? Or am I in your way? Ma Yujie cursed and immediately charged at the young female cultivator. How dare you insult me? I'm going to pull out your tendons and peel off your bones. Attack! The female cultivator was so angry that her face turned cold. With a wave of her hand, more than 10 cavalrymen behind her rushed toward Ma Yujie. Unfortunately, these cavalrymen were no match for Ma Yujie. In less than 10 breaths, Ma Yujie had dealt with them cleanly. "Bitch! You want to pull out my tendons and peel off my bones? See if I don't kill you!" After Ma Yujie dealt with the cavalryman, his fat hand grabbed the female cultivator's hair and pulled her down, throwing her heavily to the ground. The female cultivator was dizzy from the fall and vomited blood wildly. Her face was pale beyond recognition. "You? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you hurt me? Do you know who I am? I am..." The female cultivator screamed. "I don't care who you are. If you dare to provoke me, I'll kill you," Ma Yujie said domineeringly. He grabbed the female cultivator's hair and kept throwing her on the ground, creating many deep pits. "I'm the first daughter of the Qing Ming family. My father is Qin Qixio. If you dare to be so presumptuous, my father will not let you off." The female cultivator screamed and said ruthlessly, "So your father is Qin Qixio?" Zhuowen spoke. "Why? Are you afraid?" Seeing Ma Yujie stop, the female cultivator could not help but say proudly, "Why would I be afraid of you? I'll kill you all the same." Ma Yujie cursed and hit even harder. He threw the female cultivator until she was on the verge of death before letting go. "Brother Zhua, do you want to kill him?" Ma Yujie looked at Zhuowen and asked. "Don't kill him first," Zhuowen said calmly. Ma Yujie nodded and threw the female cultivator in front of Zhuowen. "Ask Qin Qixio to come out." Zhuowen looked down at the female cultivator and said indifferently, Why are you looking for my father?" At this moment, the female cultivator was much more obedient and asked weakly. "Kill him," Zhuowen said indifferently. The female cultivator was slightly taken aback but immediately laughed out loud. Her smile was full of mockery. "You want to kill my father? With just you? What a joke!" the female cultivator sneered. But just as she finished speaking, Zhuowen stepped on her face, making her unable to say anything else. "I asked you to call him out, not for you to grumble here. If you dare to say another word, I'll kill you," Zhuowen said murderously. The female cultivator trembled. She did feel the strong killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes, and did not dare to say anything else. She hurriedly took out a communication jade talisman and sent a message to Qin Qixio. "My father will be here soon." The female cultivator looked at Zhuowen in horror and said in a low voice. Sure enough, not long after the female cultivator finished speaking, a figure with a powerful aura rushed out of the Qing Ming family. Behind this figure, there was a large group of people following closely behind, their momentum vast and mighty. Chapter 46-71. You didn't. Chu Qingwan frowned. Yes. No more dodging, no more dodging. This time, Shen Xin raised her head without showing any signs of weakness and met Chu Qingwan's gaze. This time she was magnanimous as she said to Chu Qingwan word by word, "In the past 10 years, Xiao Zhonghan has hated me, scolded me, and blamed me, but I have never schemed against him. I have never done anything to let him down. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not." The corners of her mouth curved, her teary eyes filled with stubbornness. "I have never done it. I only love him. Even if he hated me, blamed me, and wished for nothing more than for me to die, it has never wavered." Chu Qingwan was stunned. She had once pitied and sympathized with Shen Xin, the wife of the young commander, because of her illness, but she had never liked her. She didn't like her not because of her past viciousness and scheming. Rather, it was because of her cowardice. In front of Commander Xiao, she seemed to always be cowardly and timid. But at this moment, the cowardly and timid Shen Xin in her eyes had a smile on her lips and her back was straight. "Xiao Zhonghan hates me and blames me. I have no way to explain. Even if I did, he wouldn't believe me. I'm waiting. I thought that as long as I kept waiting, he would one day take the initiative to believe me. Her smile became brighter and more dazzling, but the bitterness at the corners of her mouth was deep. But I'm afraid I won't be able to wait. Her entire body was ice-cold without a trace of warmth. Her stomach cramped and pulled outwards. Fine beads of sweat seeped out from Shinsean's pale cheeks. Her hands were tightly clenched, and the green veins under her skin were visible to the naked eye. Chu Qingwan's eyes were filled with a complicated expression. She thought Shinsean was despicable, shameless, selfish, and cowardly. But the Shinsean in front of her was stubbornly foolish, so stubborn that it made one's heart ache. Was this Shinsean the Shinsean she knew? Miss Chu, are you satisfied after hearing this? Do you believe it? Shinsean gritted her teeth, her body trembling from the cramping pain, but she tried her best to endure and even forced out a smile. Chu Qingwan took a deep breath. She looked at Shinsean. Instead of saying whether she believed it or not, she took out a piece of paper from her bag. What was this? Shinsean didn't take it. Chu Qingwan stuffed the piece of paper into her hand. This is my sister's attending doctor. He came back from the West. His medical skills are good, and he's also a good person. Shinsean lowered her head and looked at the contact information. Thank you. Go and take a look. Now I'll go with you. A trace of self-mockery flashed across Shinsean's eyes. Miss Chu doesn't believe me? Do you think that I'm lying to you about my illness? She clenched the piece of paper and straightened her back. Whether you believe it or not, what does that have to do with me? She turned around and left. But in the next moment, his body fell to the ground like a butterfly in the wind. In the hospital, everything was pure white. Shinsean slowly opened her eyes. In the next moment, she saw Chu Qingwan standing beside her with an inexplicable expression. Is this a hospital? Shinsean's voice was unusually dry and hoarse. Chu Qingwan poured her a glass of water and handed it to her. Thank you. Shinsean took the water and took a sip. You're pregnant. This one sentence was earth-shattering. The cup in Shinsean's hand fell on her body, and the water soaked the quilt on her body. Her voice trembled, but it hid her unconcealable ecstasy. What did you say? I'm pregnant. Yes, you're pregnant. The child is already more than 4 months old. It really was hard on her. She had been made difficult by Xiao Zhonghan time and time again, but nothing had happened. You didn't know? Chu Qingwan asked again. No, I didn't know. Shinsean was still in ecstasy. Chu Qingwan looked at her expression and felt a bit upset. She said, You can't keep this child. No. Shinsean's lips curled into a smile. She looked up at Chu Qingwan, her eyes sparkling. I want to keep him. Chapter 46-72. The dignified young commander's residence was surrounded by people. When Xiao Zhonghan arrived with his men, he saw the elite soldiers he had personally trained raising their black muzzles and confronting Qin Hai's men. There was not a single sound in the confrontation between hundreds of people. It was as if, at this moment, as long as a single needle fell to the ground, the delicate balance would be violently broken. His expression did not change as he walked steadily, his military boots making a sonorous clacking sound under his feet. Qin Hai was still the same as he had been a few years ago. His hair was a little bald, his height was a little short, and his back was straight. When he saw Xiao Zhonghan, his shrewd and ruthless eyes narrowed, revealing a mouthful of slightly yellowed teeth. Oh, it's you. I haven't seen you for a few years, and you've also relied on your father-in-law's help to upgrade your bird gun to a cannon. You've become extraordinary. His words were sarcastic. Xiao Zhonghan was not affected in the slightest. He had earned all of this by relying on his own flesh and blood. Governor Qin didn't come here just to see me, right? He asked indifferently. Nonsense. Qin Hai spat and bluntly asked, Where is that little slut Shen Xingyue? My men saw her come to your place. Slut? Xiao Zhonghan's voice grew cold. Qin Hai spat again. Of course. If having an affair behind my back isn't a slut, then what is? Not killing her is this daddy's kindness. Scram. Xiao Zhonghan's voice resonated. If you don't scram, don't blame me for being impolite. Who are you and? Before Qin Hai could finish speaking, an anxious female voice suddenly sounded from inside the young commander's residence. Qin Hai, don't make things difficult for Zhonghan. Xiao Zhonghan's brows furrowed. When he turned around, Shen Xingyue had already staggered over. She was wearing Shen Xi's clothes and her hair was also very different from yesterday's. From a distance, Xiao Zhonghan thought it was that woman, Shen Xin. Zhonghan, are you all right? Shen Xingyue's pale face relaxed when she saw Xiao Zhonghan. Little slut. Qin Hai was unable to restrain his anger. Seducing men in front of this daddy, it seems. Governor Qin. Xiao Zhonghan abruptly interrupted him. Look clearly. This is not your second wife. She is this Xiao's wife, Shen Xin. Qin Hai was stunned. He knew that Shen Xingyue and Shen Xin had the same father but different mothers. Their mothers were twin sisters, so the two of them looked very similar. He looked at the woman in front of him again, and for a moment, he was really unsure. His cold gaze scanned Shen Xin's body from top to bottom. Shen Xingyue's body trembled uncontrollably. Just as she was about to collapse, Xiao Zhonghan pulled out the gun at his waist. Bang! A loud sound rang out. The surroundings immediately became chaotic. Scram! The man's voice was steady and pleasant. Shen Xingyue's panic-stricken heart suddenly trembled. This was the man she wanted. Not that Qin Hai. The gun landed in front of his feet. Qin Hai's face alternated between red and white. He was unwilling to cower, but for some reason, when he saw Xiao Zhonghan's icy expression, his heart felt fear. After all, this was Xiao Zhonghan's territory. He spat on the ground and snorted, "Get out of here!" In the end, he left behind a sentence. Xiao Zhonghan, if that little slut doesn't come back on her own in 3 days, this daddy will definitely turn your city upside down. He turned around. Shen Xingyue's body finally could no longer support itself and softly collapsed. She was scared, terrified. That Qin Hai was simply a demon. She was only in her 20s. She didn't want to be with that disgusting demon. She threw herself into Xiao Zhonghan's arms. Her body trembled violently. She hugged him. This man was the one she should rely on. Shen Xin? That woman had taken so much from her. She had heard that Shen Xin had disappeared, so she had deliberately dressed as Shen Xin to appear here. She knew that Xiao Zhonghan would protect her. Yes, he would protect her. As for Shen Xin, hatred flashed through her eyes. Chapter 46-73. Qing Ming Family. In the spacious hall, Zhuowen sat on the main seat with Ma Yujie beside him. Qing Lingyong, the old ancestor of the Qing Ming family, stood respectfully beside Zhuowen. His head was lowered and his eyes were filled with fear and resentment. Countless cultivators of the Qing Ming family were gathered outside the hall. They were all silent as they knelt on the ground with their heads lowered, not daring to look at Zhuowen. Qing Lingyong, you don't seem to be convinced by me? Zhuowen sat on the main seat and tapped the armrest with his right index finger. He glanced at Qing Lingyong and asked calmly, I don't dare. Qing Lingyong quickly knelt on the ground and begged for forgiveness. Do you think that I'm no match for the Golden Supreme Shakyamuni? Zhuowen asked calmly. Qing Lingyong trembled and shook his head. I don't dare. Sir, you've misunderstood. Zhuowen smiled without speaking, and he didn't ask any further questions. His sharp gaze passed through the door of the hall and shot directly towards the sky ahead. Seems like it's coming, Zhuowen said calmly. Ma Yujie's eyelids twitched. What a powerful aura! The Golden Supreme Shakyamuni is stronger than we thought. I'm afraid he's not far from the 10,000 techniques coalescence. Zhuowen smiled. As long as the Golden Supreme Shakyamuni doesn't reach the 10,000 techniques coalescence, he won't be a match for me. It won't be difficult for me to kill him. Ma Yujia nodded. His senses were much stronger than ordinary people. The moment he saw Zhuowen, he knew that Zhuowen was no longer the same as before. In the entire Supreme region, no one was a match for Zhuowen. Qing Lingyong was still kneeling on the ground with his head lowered. However, there was a trace of disapproval in his eyes. He was full of confidence in the Golden Supreme Shakyamuni. He didn't think that Zhuowen was a match for the Golden Supreme Shakyamuni. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, a blazing golden light came from afar. A terrifying aura that could shake the heavens and earth swept out, filling up the entire Qingming family. In an instant, everyone from the Qingming family raised their heads and looked at the golden light that was getting closer and closer. In less than 3 breaths, the golden light stopped right above the Qingming family. This is the Golden Supreme Shakyamuni. Countless people raised their heads and stared at the sky above the Qingming clan, only to see a gigantic golden palanquin floating quietly in the air. The Golden Supreme Shakyamuni was pulled on the Golden Supreme Shakyamuni. The Golden Supreme Shakyamuni. The Shakyamuni. At each of the 4 corners of the palanquin stood 4 slender and beautiful maids, each holding a yellow parasol. We Shakyamuni! Shakyamuni, 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 the Shakyamuni I. Within the hall of the Qingming clan, Qing Lingyong glanced at Zhuowen, who was seated on the main seat. Her eyes flickered, she didn't know whether to stand up or kneel down. Zhuowen, do you know your crime? A clear and melodious voice faintly came from the palanquin. It was like a great bell that resounded throughout the entire city with a supreme prestige. Oh? Shakyamuni, Shakyamuni. Why are you acting like a god in front of me? Crime? Then tell me, what crime have I committed? On the main seat, Zhuowen's eyes shone brightly. He flicked his finger and the entire hall exploded with the sound of thunder. A giant sword made of divine power shot into the sky and pierced toward the Shakyamuni. Whoosh! The hall of the Qingming family exploded and turned into a pile of rubble. The giant sword pierced through the sky and pierced through the 4 Shakyamuni in front of the Shakyamuni. Rumble! With an earth-shattering explosion, the majestic Shakyamuni exploded into countless streaks of golden light. The maids at the 4 corners of the Shakyamuni fell to the ground. Inside the palanquin, a figure radiating golden light reached out with his right hand and easily caught the giant sword made of divine power in his palm. He was an extremely handsome man with long golden hair that reached his waist. He was Jinzhuan Shakyamuni. Your cultivation has risen really quickly. You have reached the pinnacle of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. Jinzhuan Shakyamuni looked down at Zhuowen, who was still sitting on the main seat. His beautiful eyes revealed a trace of seriousness. Jinzhuan Shakyamuni, I have no enmity with you. If you submit to me, I can spare your life. Zhuowen slowly stood up and looked straight at Jinzhuan Shakyamuni, who was hovering in the air. Many cultivators of the Qingming family looked at Zhuowen in shock. They wondered if this person had lost his mind. Who was Jinzhuan Shakyamuni? He was the strongest person in the Supreme region. Zhuowen wanted him to submit to him the moment he arrived. Could it be that this person was so confident that he was stronger than Jinzhuan Shakyamuni? Qing Lingyong's eyes revealed a gloating look. He knew that Jinzhuan Shakyamuni would not let Zhuowen go after hearing his words. No enmity? Submit to you? Zhuowen, where did your confidence come from? What reason do you have? There are 4 Shakyamuni in the Divine Blaze domain. Aside from me, the other 3 Shakyamuni were all killed by you. You tell me that you have no enmity with me? Do you think I am stupid? Jinzhuan Shakyamuni was so angry that he trembled as he questioned coldly. The other 3 Shakyamuni were not killed by me. They were killed by Sakyamuni. Do you believe me? Zhuowen said indifferently. Jinzuan Shakyamuni's expression was cold as a terrifying aura erupted from his body. He said, Zhuowen, no matter how glib your tongue is today, I will kill you. After he finished speaking, Jinzuan Shakyamuni took 7 steps in the void. His body grew 10 feet tall, and he instantly turned into a 500-foot-tall giant. It had to be said that Jinzuan Shakyamuni was indeed much stronger than an ordinary law phenomenon. The law phenomenon that he had manifested was also extremely large. Then I would like to see how you are going to kill me. Zhuowen smiled coldly as the sword finger on his right hand pointed at his glabella. Suddenly, a blazing purple-gold spiritual power gushed out from his glabella and condensed in front of him, turning into a spiritual sword essence that was millions of feet tall. Ever since Zhuowen's spiritual power had reached the human law phenomenon, his spiritual sword essence had also undergone an unprecedented transformation. Its power was enough to kill any expert below the 10,000 techniques to 1 realm. Go! Zhuowen pointed his sword finger at the void, and a huge spiritual sword essence broke through the void and shot towards Jinzuan Shakyamuni. This spiritual power, how can it be so strong? When Jinzuan Shakyamuni felt the terrifying aura of the spiritual sword essence, his heart pounded rapidly and his expression changed completely. Jinzuan Shakyamuni formed a seal with both hands, and a powerful mystique shot out in an attempt to block off Zhuowen's sword. Bang bang bang! However, it was a pity that Jinzuan Shakyamuni's mystiques could not block off the spiritual sword essence, and they all collapsed upon contact. Puke! In the end, the spiritual sword essence pierced through Jinzuan Shakyamuni's huge body before everyone's eyes. Then, Jinzuan Shakyamuni's law phenomenon collapsed inch by inch and turned into countless golden light spots. In an instant, the entire Qing Ming family and Divine Spark City fell into an unbelievable silence. Chapter 46-74. Finally, after an unknown amount of time, Xiao Zhonghan withdrew. His clothes were still neat and tidy, but she was lying on the ground like a broken doll. The man's eyes fell on her body and flashed. Just as he was about to speak, a report suddenly came from outside. Young Commander! Second Miss Shin is here. Xingyue. Shin Xin's body, which was lying on the ground, suddenly trembled. She turned her head in disbelief. Xingyue, why did she come back? Xiao Zhonghan had originally turned to leave. He was impatient to see Xingyue, but when he heard Shin Xin's words, he suddenly stopped. He sneered and looked back disdainfully at her. Yes, Xingyue is back. This commander will naturally make it up to her in the future. As for you, this commander will also make you pay the price for the things you did. Shin Xin's mouth tasted of blood and rust. She saw the ecstasy and impatience in the corners of Xiao Zhonghan's eyes and brows. Her heart, which had long been frozen, fiercely trembled a few times. On what basis? On what basis was he making demands of her 1 second and then leaving for another woman the next? On what basis was he unwilling to listen to her explanation and insisted on forcing those mistakes onto her? She was about to die, so why couldn't he stay for her? The figure in front of her had already left and the door slammed shut. Bang! The loud sound of the door slamming shut abruptly woke Shin Xin. She crawled up from the ground and rushed out in her thin clothes, not even bothering to put on her shoes. She had to keep him. But before she could rush out, the door was pulled open with a whoosh. The man's figure stood coldly in front of her. Before she could finish speaking, he coldly interrupted her. You are not allowed to come out. If you dare to let Xingyue see you and dirty her eyes, this commander will definitely make you regret living. Shin Xin's body seemed to be nailed to the ground. He didn't come back for her. It was for Xingyue. In order to not let Xingyue see her. But she didn't owe Xingyue anything. Shin Xingyue's mother and her mother were twin sisters. That year, when her mother was pregnant, Shin Xingyue's mother seized the opportunity to climb into her father's bed. That was how Shin Xingyue was born. Because of this, her mother fell ill from accumulated resentment and passed away after giving birth to her. Her father felt that he had let his first wife down and wanted to make it up to his eldest daughter. He was not close to Shin Xingyue either. But if they asked themselves honestly, they had never treated Shin Xingyue badly. If Shin Xingyue hadn't slept with Qin Hai 7 years ago, her father wouldn't have made the decision to marry Shin Xingyue to Qin Hai. But I'm your wife. Shin Xingyue has long been Qin Hai's concubine, she shouted, her voice full of determination. Xiao Zhonghan's entire body became even colder, and the gaze he used to look at Shin Xin also wished he could tear her to shreds. If it wasn't for you, Xingyue wouldn't have married Qin Hai. It was all because of this woman. If she hadn't poisoned Xingyue, Xingyue wouldn't have slept with Qin Hai and even become his third concubine. He knew very well what kind of person Qin Hai was. All these years, he had been constantly expanding his military strength, waiting for this day. He wanted to snatch Xingyue from the hands of that bastard Qin Hai. He also wanted Shin Xin, this vicious woman, to receive the punishment she deserved. Someone come! Xiao Zhonghan suddenly shouted. Lock her up for this, Marshal. She absolutely cannot be allowed to appear in front of Xingyue. Yes, young Marshal. Shin Xin panicked. She looked at Xiao Zhonghan, her face full of disbelief. She struggled, her legs already numb from the cold. Xiao Zhonghan, I am your wife. Did you forget that it's my birthday today? That scarf was really a gift from Miss Chu. If you don't believe me, you can investigate. I also didn't drug Xingyue. If you don't believe me, you can also investigate. Her words were spoken extremely quickly, but Xiao Zhonghan's expression did not change in the slightest. What did her birthday have to do with him? Whether she had done anything or not, he was naturally very clear about it. Those photos of her talking and laughing with a man, how could they be fake? The coldness in his eyes was like a raging sea, engulfing everything. Are they all dead? Lock her up for this, Marshal. Xiao Zhonghan, I didn't do it. Xiao Zhonghan, I regret it. I will never fall in love with you in my next life. Chapter 46-75. In the depths of the chaotic cosmos where darkness and coldness coexisted, a streak of light tore through the darkness and instantly shot off into the distance. It was a huge divine ship. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie stood side by side on the deck as they looked at the countless fragments of continents and meteors that flew past them. Brother Ma, are you sure it's this way? Zhuowen could not help but frown as he looked at the endless darkness ahead. It had already been 49 days since he and Ma Yujie had left the Divine Blaze domain. However, it was as if they were walking in the same spot. Apart from the fragments of continents, they were surrounded by countless shattered meteors. Ma Yujie chuckled. Brother Zhuo, don't worry. I'm very familiar with the ruins of the Overgod domain. I won't lead you the wrong way. Although Zhuowen had his doubts, he still chose to believe in Ma Yujie. Although the fatty was often unreliable, he was still quite reliable when it came to important matters. After flying for a few more days, Ma Yujie suddenly stopped the ship. What's wrong? Zhuowen looked at Ma Yujie, scratching his head as an ominous feeling rose in his heart. We seem to have gone in the wrong direction. I remember that it should be that way. No, it should be the other way. That's not right either. Ma Yujie smiled awkwardly. Zhuowen was speechless. After a few months, the two of them finally arrived at the ruins of the Overgod world. Are these the ruins of the Overgod domain? Zhuowen could not help but frown as he looked ahead. The ruins of the Overgod domain that appeared before him was no longer a complete domain. Instead, they were fragments of continents that had been shattered into countless regions. However, the fragments seemed to be pulled by some kind of power as they constantly revolved around the center. That's... Zhuowen's gaze landed on the center of the ruins. A gigantic sphere hovered there. This sphere was emitting a scorching and dazzling light, which was many times brighter than the sun. The origin of the domain? Zhuowen stared at the huge glowing sphere and immediately sensed the vigorous and blazing origin source aura emanating from it. Moreover, she could feel that the origin energy within the ball was many times more powerful than the origin energy of the Abyss realm. This Master God realm has been destroyed for who knows how many years. Why is its realm source still preserved until now? Zhuowen asked in confusion. Ma Yujie smiled faintly and said, Brother Zhuo, there's something you don't know. You probably can't even begin to imagine how powerful the Master God realm is right now. In the past, there were several existences who could directly face the primordial gods. The strength of this realm is unprecedented in the entire primal chaos. Hearing this, Zhuowen was shocked. Facing the immemorial gods directly? What kind of great power did this require? In the entire 100 outer realms, the most powerful people were far inferior to the archaic gods, yet several of them had appeared in the Master God realm. This was just too shocking. Moreover, after countless years, 99% of this domain's origin has been lost. Ma Yujie spoke slowly. His words were earth-shattering, completely shocking Zhuowen's soul. The remnant origin that had lost 99% of its origin was still stronger than the Abyss realm source. Just how powerful was the complete Master God realm? Such a vigorous and high-level origin. Has no powerhouse discovered it after countless years? Zhuowen asked with a frown. Although the Master God realm was located in a very remote location and it would be difficult to discover it, after so many years, there must have been a peerless powerhouse who could find it. However, after countless years, the Master God realm's origin was still far away. How could Zhuowen not be shocked? Ma Yujie sneered and said, Do you think it's easy to obtain this origin? With that, Ma Yujie waved his right hand, and a huge stone that was hundreds of feet long was pulled by his power and flew through the air, smashing heavily into the ruins of the Master God realm. The moment the stone fell into the ruins, the ear-piercing sound of chains rang out, and then countless pitch-black figures rushed out, fighting to be the first to launch a fierce attack on the stone. In the blink of an eye, the huge stone was shattered into countless pieces. Zhuowen's pupils shrank into needles as he stared at the countless strange figures bound by chains in the ruins of the Master God realm. Although these strange figures were the same as humans, their skin was greenish-black, and their skin was covered with dense black scales. Their eyes were pitch-black, and their bodies exuded a strange demonic aura. This demonic aura was completely different from the demonic aura of Zhuowen's limitless demonic scripture. This demonic aura was completely filled with pure evil, hostility, brutality, and all kinds of shocking negative energy emotions. What are these things? Zhuowen said with a slight frown. They're demonic puppets. Ma Yujie said with a serious look. Demonic puppets? What's that? Zhuowen said with a little knowledge. This was the first time he had heard of these so-called demonic puppets. Ma Yujie said in a low voice, These demonic puppets should have entered the ruins of the Master God realm when they were alive to seize the origin. However, they were all contaminated by the demonic aura of the primordial demonic seed and turned into strange demonic puppets. Primordial demonic seed? Zhuowen frowned. He was getting more and more confused. This so-called primordial demonic seed was something he had never heard of before. I can't explain the primordial demonic seed to you in a short time. Let's find a way to enter the origin at the core of the ruins first. I'm 80% sure that the last primordial stone is in the origin world. Ma Yujie said with a serious look. The origin world was an independent space world. Cultivating or comprehending in it would bring endless benefit. Back then, Duan Jipeng, Ziyang, and Luo Ye had cultivated in the origin world. In the end, Duan Jipeng successfully broke through to the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. This master god realm was extremely extraordinary. Even though 99% of the origin world had been lost, the world within it was probably not simple. If the last primordial stone was really in there, Zhuowen felt that it was normal. Brother Zhua, I have an item that can temporarily suppress the demonic aura of the primordial demonic seed and prevent us from being contaminated by the demonic aura. However, if we want to enter the core of the ruins, we have to break through these demonic puppets. Ma Yujia looked at Zhuowen and continued, these demonic puppets are really powerful. The weakest is at the late stage of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, while the strongest is already at the 10,000 techniques returned to one. You and I have to work together. Otherwise, we won't be able to enter at all. Zhuowen glanced at Ma Yujie and did not object. Ma Yujie grinned and took out a huge imperial canopy. He took out the imperial canopy. Immediately, the imperial canopy spewed out endless blazing light and floated above Zhuowen and Ma Yujie's heads. Endless brilliance sprinkled down. The demonic aura not far away seemed to have met its natural enemy and gradually retreated, not daring to approach. Let's go. Ma Yujie glanced at Zhuowen and took the lead. Zhuowen was not willing to be left behind. The moment the two of them stepped into the ruins of the Master God realm side by side, the entire ruins resounded with the sound of countless chains. Demonic puppets flew wildly toward Zhuowen and Ma Yujie, instantly drowning the two of them. Chapter 46-76. Shen Xin stood at the entrance of Paramount. She was dressed in luxurious and exquisite clothes, which did not match the coarse smell of powder here. As a result, when people passed by her, they subconsciously avoided her. She tightened her grip on the gift box bag. Finally, she stood in front of Chu Qingwan. The person who used to stand on the stage and wait for her to give her a gift was now standing in front of her. Madam, I like this gift very much. Please thank the young marshal for me. Thank him for his love. Chu Qingwan's expression was gentle and her smile was gentle, but there was a trace of sympathy and pity in her eyes when she looked at Shen Xin. Under her gaze, Shen Xin only wanted to escape, but, is there anything else? Chu Qingwan asked. The elegant smile on her face cracked inch by inch. Shen Xin's words were stuck in her throat. Embarrassment quickly climbed up from the bottom of her heart. Her voice was extremely soft. Miss Chu, can you teach me how to sing? Sing? Chu Qingwan was surprised. Yes. Shen Xin gritted her teeth. Zhonghan said that he wants to hear me sing, so I want to learn from you. Chu Qingwan was even more surprised. Her face was charming and moving, especially under the light. Her eyes moved and were full of charm. His eyes were filled with surprise, pity, sarcasm. Shen Xin's fingers trembled slightly. Her small face was pale, and her fingertips were cold. Even her body, which was wrapped in fur, quickly turned cold. All right, I'll teach you if you want to learn. What does Madam want to learn? The night was long. Shen Xin and Chu Qingwan walked and spoke on the quiet and empty stage. Under the light, they practiced over and over again. Their voices came from the empty space. Long and quiet, her voice was hoarse, and layers of cold sweat appeared on her body. Shen Xin's small face became paler and paler, as white as paper. Thinking about the past, I still feel regret. When I left, the flowers were like brocade. Today, the willow on the roof, bang, there was a loud sound. Chu Qingwan came back to her senses and looked back. She saw Shen Xin, who had fallen on the stage. Madam! She was shocked. Shen Xin's body was curled up on the table like a shrimp, and her thin body couldn't stop trembling. Madam, what's wrong? Chu Qingwan wanted to reach out to support her, but Shen Xin gritted her teeth and waved her hand. I'm fine. She could endure the pain for a while and it would pass. Chu Qingwan was shocked by the bone-piercing pain and the beads of sweat on her forehead. She wanted to call for help, but Chu Qingwan held her back tightly. No need to call for help. This is an old problem. After an unknown period of time, Shen Xi's body finally stopped trembling and her complexion improved slightly. Madam, is this stomach cancer? Chu Qingwan suddenly asked. Shen Xi looked up. Chu Qingwan continued, my sister, she also passed away with stomach cancer. Shen Xi felt bitter. The chances of curing stomach cancer were almost zero. She nodded. Chu Qingwan reached out to help her up, her expression complicated. Does the young commander know? I don't know. Shen Xi smiled. Chu Qingwan pursed her lips. She wanted to say something, but she didn't know what to say. Yesterday, she had naturally seen the young commander's disgust and dislike for Shen Xi. If he knew about Shen Xi's body, would he still treat her like this? Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. After all, Shen Xi had done a lot of evil in a daze. She heard Shen Xi's words again. Please help me hide this matter, Miss Chu. I don't want him to know. Miss Chu, many thanks. Faced with such a pair of pleading eyes, Chu Qingwan finally nodded. Let's continue, Miss Chu. Shen Xi stood up. She still remembered Xiao Zhonghan's request. She still wanted to learn how to sing when her body was in such a condition. Chu Qingwan's voice faltered. Why do you have to do this? Chu Qingwan had personally seen how painful it was for someone with late-stage stomach cancer. It was because she had seen it that she didn't understand why Shen Xi was so insistent. Wasn't it good to tell Xiao Zhonghan? He likes it. One sentence, 3 words. He liked it. Because of such a laughable and lamentable reason, Shen Xi supported her seriously ill body to learn how to sing on a cold winter night in such a place. Chu Qingwan's eyelashes moved slightly. She could see that Shen Xi didn't have much time left. This woman. Chapter 46-77. He took off his boots, washed up, and got into bed. That night, without Shen Xi by his side, Xiao Zhonghan felt that he slept especially well. It was not until late the next day that he was awakened by the soft footsteps of the servants outside. Getting out of bed, his eyes were still drowsy. Looking up, he saw that the hands of the quartz clock had already reached 10. Damn it, where was that woman? Why didn't she wake him up earlier? After cursing in his heart, Xiao Zhonghan suddenly froze. He remembered that the woman seemed to have run out last night. Run away? It was late at night and the world was not peaceful. She did not know many people here, so where could she have gone? Moreover, she had been spoiled since childhood, and had never seen the suffering of the world. Xiao Zhonghan sneered and waited for Shen Xi to obediently roll back. He first went to Shen Xingyue's place to accompany her for breakfast. After comforting her for a while, Xiao Zhonghan took a car to the general office. The young commander was ruthless and decisive in his actions, and his subordinates were like iron rods in his hands. When he walked in, no one dared to raise their heads to look at him, even if this person's status was once lower than theirs. From the outer circle of errand runners to the young commander who held real power, everyone envied him for meeting Shen Qinghe, except for himself. Sitting in the large, custom-made chair, he did not have time to do anything before the door was pushed open from the outside. Lu Rong winked and looked him up and down. Oh, which beauty was it last night! So erosive that even our young commander Xiao is reluctant to get out of bed? Lu Rong and Xiao Zhonghan were true brothers who had gone through life and death together. The two were originally from Shen Qinghe's outer circle and went on missions together for several years. Later, when Xiao Zhonghan became the young commander, he also asked for Lu Rong. In front of him, Lu Rong never knew what high or low status was and did not pay attention to the way he spoke. Brothers were brothers. Xiao Zhonghan glanced at him. Do you need something? If you don't, then get out. All right. Your words are so unpleasant to hear, no wonder people hate you. Lu Rong's expression straightened and also withdrew his sloppy expression. He threw the letter in his hand onto Xiao Zhonghan's table. Qin Hai had someone deliver this. Speaking of which, did you detain that person's second concubine? I'm not scolding you, but Shen Xingyue has been married to Qin Hai for so many years. Why are you still thinking about her? Can't you properly? Xiao Zhonghan shot him a cold glare. Lu Rong rubbed his nose and didn't dare to continue. However, no one knew more about the matter between Xiao Zhonghan, Shen Xingyue, and Shen Xiyin than Lu Rong. He looked at Xiao Zhonghan's expression and tried to restrain himself, but in the end, he could no longer hold back. No. No matter how good second young Miss Shen is, she's already married. No matter how bad eldest young Miss Shen is, she's still been your wife for several years. Her heart is completely tied to you. Scram. This time, Xiao Zhonghan didn't even bother to look at him and directly kicked him out. Lu Rong was fearless. No matter what, Shen Qinghe had saved him. He had picked him up when he was about to starve to death. To return the favor, he could disregard Shen Xiyin and Xiao Zhonghan's feelings, but he still needed to advise them. Young Miss Shen is really good to you. I'm so envious. There are so many young men for her to choose from, but she only likes you. All these years, you've embarrassed her in every way, but I've never seen her complain about you. Where could he find such a wife? Before he could finish his sentence, whoosh! With a thud, a high-quality Duan Yen narrowly missed the top of his head and landed on the carpet behind him. He turned his head to look. Fortunately, the blanket was thick enough. Smacking his lips, Lu Rong finally obediently rubbed his nose and slipped away when he sensed the coldness emanating from Xiao Zhonghan's body. The door closed in front of him. Without Lu Rong's chatter, the air became still again. Chapter 46-79. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Zhuo and Ma Yujie's expressions changed slightly as they discovered that demonic puppets had appeared in the walls around them and were attacking them like locusts. Why are there so many demonic puppets? Ma Yujie's expression changed drastically. The number of demonic puppets had far exceeded his expectations. These demonic puppets were densely packed, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. They instantly slammed into the area where Ma Yujie and Zhuo were standing. Boom, boom, boom. The demon-subduing bowl spewed out endless golden light, blocking the demonic puppets outside. However, there were too many demonic puppets. They swarmed over and crashed into them without any regard for their lives. Zhuo and Ma Yujie couldn't help but retreat. These demonic puppets are protecting the demon infant. They're purposely pushing us away. Zhuo frowned as he stared at the demon infant in the center of the empty space. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but the demon infant seemed to have revealed a strange smile. Brother Ma, is there no other way? If this continues, we'll be forced to leave this place. Zhuo couldn't help but look at Ma Yujie and ask in a low voice. He knew that this fatty had many trump cards and knew far more secrets than him. He must have a corresponding solution. Ma Yujie scratched his head and said solemnly, "There's another way, and that is to use the primordial technique to absorb the primordial demonic qi and weaken the demon infant's power." However, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed and he couldn't help but look at Ma Yujie and ask, "However what?" Ma Yujie said in a low voice, "Although the primordial technique is all-encompassing, it still depends on the cultivator's limits. The primordial demonic qi isn't ordinary demonic qi. It can easily affect one's mind. If one isn't careful, it's easy to fall into the demonic path and become a demonic puppet for the demon infant. This method isn't advisable." Zhuowen's expression changed slightly and he asked in a low voice, "Is there no other way?" Ma Yujie thought for a moment and shook his head. "This is the only way I can think of right now. The others are just a drop in the bucket. We can't break through the encirclement of so many demonic puppets. Then let's try this method first. If something goes wrong, immediately stop the primordial demonic qi," Zhuowen said in a low voice. Hearing this, Ma Yujie sighed and nodded. He and Zhuowen had already barged into this place. If they were to just leave like this, he would be very unwilling. The demon-subduing alms bowl was still enveloping the two of them. Endless golden light sprayed out, isolating them from the endless demonic puppet. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie sat down cross-legged and began circulating the primordial grand mist technique. Crash! All of a sudden, the Archean demon qi inside the Archean demon seed surged into Zhuowen and Ma Yujie's bodies. Just as Ma Yujie had said, the primordial technique had an all-encompassing attribute. When Zhuowen cultivated this technique, he had absorbed many kinds of energy that he didn't need. This also caused Zhuowen's god power to have many different attributes. In addition, he had cultivated the limitless devil cannon before, so absorbing the devil qi was not difficult for Zhuowen. Such a surging devil qi. Is this the primordial demon qi? The moment he absorbed the primordial demon qi, Zhuowen's pupils shrank as he felt the power and terror of the primordial demon qi. Just as Ma Yujie had said, the primordial demon qi could easily affect one's mind. As soon as he started to absorb it, Zhuowen found that his mind was filled with endless negative emotions. If an ordinary cultivator absorbed a little bit of primordial demon qi, they would go crazy. However, the primordial technique that Zhuowen cultivated was extraordinary. Could filter out most of the negative emotions. Moreover, Zhuowen had two primordial stones on him, so the effects were not too great. What surprised Zhuowen the most was that as he continued to absorb the primordial demon qi, his understanding of the limitless devil cannon deepened. The limitless devil cannon was divided into 4 levels. He had successfully cultivated 2 levels and unlocked the demonic eye and demonic die. He had tried to cultivate it later, but it was difficult for him to break through to the 3rd level. The main reason was that there was no high-grade devil qi in the 100 domains. The limitless devil scriptures cultivation just so happened to require devil qi the most. Moreover, the higher the grade of devil qi, the more terrifying and powerful the divine ability cultivated would be. Now that the primordial demon qi was far stronger than ordinary devil qi, it was the perfect stepping stone for him to cultivate the limitless devil cannon. As the two of them continued to absorb the primordial demon qi that originally filled the entire space gradually thinned out. As the primordial demon qi thinned out, the number of devil puppets in the surroundings also gradually decreased. These devil puppets relied on the primordial demon qi to move. Now that the primordial demon qi was decreasing, they naturally kept retreating. When the devil puppets had decreased by half, Ma Yujie suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with a scarlet light, filled with violence, hostility, and killing intent. This primordial demon qi is really terrifying. Although it is filtered by the primordial technique, the negative emotions contained in it are still terrifying. Ma Yujie muttered to himself. His hands formed seals, and with the help of the demon-subduing bowl's power, he gradually offset the negative emotions in his body. His eyes were filled with lingering fear. When his eyes regained clarity, he was shocked to find that Zhuowen was still sitting cross-legged beside him, and he was still absorbing the primordial demon qi. This kid. Ma Yujie was dumbfounded. He obviously did not expect Zhuowen to still be absorbing the primordial demon qi. Zhuowen has 2 primordial stones, so it should be reasonable for him to have a stronger resistance against the primordial demon qi. Ma Yujie's eyes revealed a pondering look, and the shock in his heart gradually calmed down. 2 hours, 4 hours. 2 hours passed, and the devil puppets in the surroundings of the space had almost disappeared. Zhuowen was still absorbing the primordial demon qi. F***ck. Why is this guy still absorbing the primordial demon chi? Is he not affected at all? Ma Yujie's face was filled with disbelief. Suddenly, Zhuowen opened his eyes. The depths of his eyes were scarlet, as if he was a peerless demon. However, within the scarlet-red eyes, they were incomparably clear. The limitless demon book has finally broken through to the third level. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up slightly, and he was in a good mood. The primordial demon chi was indeed extraordinary. He had only absorbed it for less than a day, and he had broken through to the third level like a hot knife through butter. What surprised him even more was that the third level of the limitless demon book gave him a divine ability called Demon Body. He could summon the demon armor from the depths of the void, cover his whole body, and transform into a peerless demon. At this moment, Zhuowen's attack, speed, defense, and so on would increase by hundreds and thousands of times, and his strength would increase tremendously. What surprised him even more was that the demon armor was extremely hard, and ordinary attacks could not break it at all. Zhuowen stood up straight, and just as he was about to look for Ma Yujie, he was shocked to find that Ma Yujie had hidden far away and was looking at him in horror. "Brother Ma, what's wrong with you? Have the devil puppets retreated?" Zhuowen looked around and found that the endless devil puppets in the open space were all gone, and could not help but ask in puzzlement. Ma Yujie looked at Zhuowen nervously and said, You absorbed so much primordial demon chi, are you the real person or not? If you don't tell the truth, this fat lord will destroy you." Zhuowen was stunned and immediately reacted, knowing that this Ma Yujie must have misunderstood something. Chapter 4680. Brother Ma, I feel that you have some misunderstanding about me. I am the real deal. Zhuowen frowned. Seeing that Ma Yujie was hiding far away, he couldn't help but step forward to reason with him. Unexpectedly, Ma Yujie was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He ran to the other side with his short legs and distanced himself from Zhuowen. "Don't come over now. The more you say that, the more suspicious you are. Do you think this fatty is stupid? Do I look like someone who is so easily fooled?" The fat on Ma Yujie's face trembled as he stared at Zhuowen and said nervously. Zhuowen had a helpless expression and could only stop in his tracks. In the end, after Zhuowen's persuasion, Ma Yujie finally believed in Zhuowen completely. "Brother Zhuo, how did you do it? After absorbing so much primordial demon chi, your mind isn't affected?" Ma Yujie approached Zhuowen, his eyes full of eagerness as he asked. "This is my secret. Forgive me for not telling you." Zhuowen retorted indifferently. How could he not know what this fatty was planning? Naturally, he couldn't tell this fatty. In the past, he had always thought that the limitless demon book was just an ordinary demon Dao cultivation method. But now, he didn't think so. This demonic book could actually absorb the primordial demonic chi to advance in cultivation, which showed how extraordinary it was. Especially when he found that the limitless demon book and primordial technique worked together, there was an extraordinary sense of tacit understanding. He didn't know if it was a coincidence or there was really some kind of connection. But he knew that by relying on the limitless demon book and primordial technique, he could absorb primordial demon chi to cultivate the limitless demon book without fear. He was looking forward to what kind of more powerful demon Dao abilities the limitless demon book would give him after he cultivated to the fourth level. Next, we should think of a way to get the primordial stone in the demon infant's hands. And how should we deal with the demon infant? Zhuowen looked at Ma Yujie and asked. Zhuowen knew nothing about the archaic demon seed, so he naturally had no idea how to deal with the demon infant. He could only ask Ma Yujie for help. "Of course I have a way to deal with the demon infant. However, this method is too powerful. We can eliminate the demon infant while it's still asleep, but I'm afraid that it will cause damage to the primordial stone." Ma Yujie's brows furrowed tightly. He was obviously worried that his method was inappropriate and stood there hesitantly. The only way to retrieve the primordial stone is to shatter the sphere and snatch the primordial stone from the demon infant. Zhuowen pointed at the sphere in the middle of the pillar and said in a low voice. Ma Yujie sighed softly and said, "I'm afraid not." That sphere was formed from the demon infant's most powerful magic power, and it contains half of the demon infant's magic power. Normal methods can't break it. The only way is the method I mentioned earlier that can eliminate the demon infant in one fell swoop. But Zhuowen naturally understood what Ma Yujie was worried about. Since this sphere is formed from the demon infant's magic power, won't the sphere disappear if we absorb all the magic power on the surface of the sphere? Zhuowen said. Are you crazy? Do you know how terrifying the magic power contained in the demon infant is? Even if it's half, it's still thousands of times more than the primordial demon chi we absorbed in the open space just now. It's not something we can absorb. It's going to kill us. Ma Yujie shook his head repeatedly, completely disagreeing with Zhuowen's method. Let me try. Zhuowen stepped into the air and floated in front of the sphere. Brother Zhuo, don't be rash. You're playing with your life by doing this. Ma Yujie hurriedly said. Zhuowen looked down at Ma Yujie and said in amusement, Brother Ma, haven't you always liked to trick me? If I die, won't that be exactly what you want? Ma Yujie fell silent and shook his head. I'm just taking advantage of you because of my personality. But I don't want you to die like this. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Zhuowen smiled indifferently and looked at the sphere in front of him. He took a deep breath and slowly placed his right palm on the sphere's surface. At this moment, Zhuowen circulated the primordial grand mist technique and limitless devil tome and began to madly absorb the magic power on the sphere's surface. When the demon infant's magic power entered Zhuowen's body, endless ruthlessness, killing intent, and other negative emotions rushed into Zhuowen's mind. However, these negative emotions were basically all absorbed and digested by the limitless devil tome, so their effect on Zhuowen was negligible. Time gradually passed. It was unknown how long had passed, but it felt as if an entire century had passed. Zhuowen suddenly realized that the limitless devil tome in his body had successfully broken through to the fourth stage. He could feel that the magic power in his body had reached a terrifying level. After the limitless devil tome broke through to the fourth stage, it also gave Zhuowen a Devil Dao ability. This Devil Dao ability was called Devil Domain. What surprised Zhuowen the most was that the Devil Domain was divided into 18 layers, just like the 18 layers of Hell. The opening of each level required a huge amount of Devil Chi cultivation in order to successfully open. Now that he had just obtained the Devil Domain, naturally, he had not opened any of the 18 layers yet. He also realized that the sphere's magic power was still very rich, so he continued to absorb magic power and open up the Devil Domain. The rolling magic power was like a creator, and it began to open up the Devil Domain layer by layer. Every layer of the Devil Domain was filled with magic power, and there were many demonic creatures. The lower the layer, the more powerful the magic power and demonic creatures. When all 18 layers of the Devil Domain were opened up, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were no longer crimson red. Instead, they had turned pitch black, making him look exceptionally strange and sinister. When Ma Yujie saw this scene, he had already hidden far away. In fact, the current Zhuowen's aura was too strange. His entire body was filled with terrifying magic power, and his pitch-black eyes were emotionless and cold. The current Zhuowen was more like a demon than a demon. Ma Yujie only felt that the current Zhuowen was very dangerous, and he did not dare to approach him easily. Crack! Suddenly, a crisp cracking sound rang out. The spherical light barrier on the surface of the demonic nascent soul was riddled with countless cracks before shattering with a loud boom. A terrifying magic power came crashing down like countless stars, causing the entire space to bear a terrifying pressure. This brat really did absorb all of the light barrier's demonic energy, but Ma Yujia looked at Zhuo, who was covered in demonic energy. Although he wanted to go and take the primordial stone, he was still quite cautious and hesitant. At this moment, Zhuo, who was surrounded by magic power, suddenly reached out with his right hand and grabbed the primordial stone in the demon infant's palm. The moment he grabbed the primordial stone, the demon infant suddenly opened his pitch-black eyes, and his small hand covered with red patterns grabbed Zhuowen's wrist. Chapter 4683. Boom. Xin felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her hands tightly clenched as she looked at him in disbelief. But the man in front of her had his lips curled in ridicule. It was so obvious that the rest of her words were stuck in her throat. A cold glint flashed through Xiao Zhonghan's eyes. A person like you should have died long ago. Don't worry, if you truly die, I will definitely have the entire Xiao Shui Fu draped in red decorations to celebrate. With a bang, the door was closed. Xin powerlessly collapsed to the ground. The current her simply could not bear Xiao Zhonghan. Her hands did not listen to her and trembled like sifting chaff. Elder Lin's words echoed in her ears. Madam, your body, if you properly recuperate, you should still have a year left. As if her entire body had been repeatedly crushed, Xin pulled off a pillowcase and stuffed it into her mouth. The pain from her illness was not as easy to endure as she had imagined. Her intestines felt like they were being pulled out inch by inch. In order to not disturb Xiao Zhonghan, Xin desperately clenched her teeth and endured. Night. Cold as water. Xin stood outside the door for a long time before taking a deep breath and pushing open the door. Xiao Zhonghan raised his head and his gaze fell on her body. Zhonghan, you were looking for me. Xin was dressed as usual, and her hair was neatly tied up. At first glance, she appeared dignified and virtuous. But Xiao Zhonghan knew exactly what kind of person she was. The corner of his mouth curled and he threw over an exquisite and gorgeous gift box. Send this to Paramount. Qing Wan threw a tantrum. Go apologize to her. Just say that this marshal will compensate her another day. Hearing his words, Xin eyes dimmed. The gift box was very light, but she felt that it was incomparably heavy as she held it in her hand. Taking a deep breath, Xin forced herself to wear a gentle smile. Okay, I will definitely personally deliver it to her. Respectful, gentle, treating him as the sky, treating him as the earth. Xiao Zhonghan was angered. This woman was really good at enduring and acting. Since it was like this, he smiled maliciously. Qing Wan said that she always sings for others to hear. Tomorrow, prepare to sing for her. As he spoke, he seemed extremely satisfied with his sudden idea. Right. Just like this, Qing Wan will definitely be very happy. Xin shoulders trembled slightly. Trembling, from his shoulders to his hands, then to his feet. Xiao Zhonghan, do you really hate me this much? Hate me? You hate me so much that you don't even want to leave me a little bit of dignity? Xiao Zhonghan narrowed his eyes, appreciating with satisfaction the woman's suddenly pale face and trembling body like a fallen leaf. Xin, since you so yearned to become the young marshal's wife, now, isn't this exactly what you wanted? Mockery and smugness flashed through his eyes. But soon, his mocking and complacent expression froze on his face. The woman's trembling body suddenly calmed down. A respectful smile once again appeared on her face. She looked at him and said, All right, whatever Zhonghan says. Tomorrow I will sing it for Miss Chu. Sing Qing Wan's favorite song. All right. Xin did not know how she walked out of Xiao Zhonghan's room. Her cheeks were stiff and her steps were faster with each step. In the end, he shut himself in the room with a bang. His body went limp and fell down the door. My heart hurts so much. It hurts so much here. Chapter 4685. The world spun and Zhuowen felt as if he was floating in the air. He wanted to move but found that his body was stiff and he couldn't move at all. It was as if the blood in his body had frozen. What's going on? Zhuowen was shocked. He tried to open his eyes but found that his eyelids seemed to be filled with lead. He couldn't open them at all. At the same time, he also found that his 5 senses, divine sense, and so on were all blocked by some mysterious power. He couldn't sense what was going on around him at all. However, he could feel that he seemed to be drifting in some kind of spatial passage. Moreover, the speed was so fast that he felt as if he was caught off guard. Suddenly, 4 purple lights appeared in the depths of Zhuowen's mind. The purple lights became clearer and clearer. Only then did he realize that the source of the purple lights were 4 stones. Primordial stones? Zhuowen naturally recognized these 4 stones. Weren't they the primordial stones? In an instant, endless purple light soared into the sky and enveloped his entire mind. In the end, there was only endless purple light left in front of his eyes. In the endless purple light, he saw the vast starry sky and the prosperous and lush domain continents floating in the starry sky. He also saw the huge primordial tree that stood in the starry sky and connected the ends of heaven and earth. He also saw the huge and mysterious primordial star floating at the end of the sky. His gaze fell on the primordial star. His gaze constantly zoomed in and penetrated deep into the primordial star. He saw many imposing and powerful figures standing in the primordial star. They were like an army that had gathered in a vast and boundless plain. These imposing figures were surrounded by divine brilliance. Rays of multicolored light contained an aura that made one's heart palpitate. Primordial gods? Zhuowen murmured softly. He looked deeply at the army that seemed to be made up of primordial gods. Suddenly, Zhuowen noticed that at the end of the primordial god army, rolling demonic fog was sweeping over. It was surging over in an overwhelming manner. As the demonic mist rolled over, the earth seemed to have been dyed black. It looked strange and deep. Countless divine grasses, divine trees, and other things that were full of vitality were all withered and destroyed. In the depths of the demonic fog, pairs of crimson eyes were revealed. They were terrifying demonic creatures. Primordial Skyfiend? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes, revealing a solemn expression. He had absorbed the primordial demon chi before and had also come into contact with the demon infant in the primordial demon seed. He could tell at a glance that the demon chi that was sweeping over was the primordial demon chi. Is this the battle between the primordial gods and the primordial heavenly demons? Zhuowen thought to himself. When he looked back at the battlefield, he saw that the primordial god and the primordial heavenly demon were already fighting. The blazing divine radiance and the gloomy demonic chi collided in the heavens and the earth. It was as if the heavens and the earth had been split into light and darkness. It was an exceptionally terrifying sight. Is this the power of the primordial gods and primordial heavenly demons? How powerful! Zhuowen's expression changed completely as he watched the battle. Whether it was the primordial gods or primordial heavenly demons, their power far exceeded that of the chaotic starry sky. In his eyes, the Lord of the Abyss was already extremely terrifying. However, in this battle, any primordial god or primordial heavenly demon could kill the Lord of the Abyss in an instant. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. Zhuowen could not help but think of the primordial demon seed's demon infant. Although the latter's strength was far inferior to that of an adult primordial heavenly demon, it was still an infant. It had not yet grown up or even hatched. Even so, the demon infant's strength far exceeded Zhuowen's. If he had not relied on the limitless demonic tome to absorb more than half of the demon infant's demonic chi, he would probably have died in the ruins of the Master God world. On the battlefield, the battle became more and more intense and terrifying. The vast plains were torn apart by the terrifying battle, forming a bottomless abyss. One primordial god and primordial heavenly demon after another fell into the depths of the abyss, forming mountains of corpses and seas of blood. However, what made Zhuowen fearful was that after those primordial heavenly demons died, the other primordial heavenly demons actually pounced on them and devoured their corpses. Meanwhile, the auras of those primordial heavenly demons who devoured the corpses of their own kind actually skyrocketed, reaching an unprecedentedly terrifying level. As the primordial heavenly demons continued to fall and devour and grow stronger, the situation on the battlefield that was originally evenly matched gradually turned. The primordial god's side was gradually suppressed by the primordial heavenly demons. No wonder Brother Ma mentioned that the primordial god would suffer a crushing defeat. It turns out that these primordial heavenly demons can strengthen themselves by devouring the corpses of their own kind. This is unexplainable. Zhuowen's gaze was solemn. It had to be said that the primordial heavenly demons' ability to strengthen themselves by devouring their own kind was truly terrifying. As long as the primordial heavenly demons were not completely eradicated in one go, the primordial heavenly demons' side would only grow stronger as the battle continued, while the primordial god's side would be constantly weakened and would definitely suffer a crushing defeat in the end. In addition, the primordial heavenly demons' ability to reproduce was extremely terrifying. Now, Zhuowen more or less understood why the primordial god would be suppressed by the primordial heavenly demons to such an extent. Soon, the scene gradually disappeared, and Zhuowen also discovered that the feeling of floating around him gradually disappeared. His feet stepped on the ground, and he suddenly felt a sense of steadiness. This is... Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes and looked around. Only then did he realize that he was standing on the peak of a mountain that was as black as ink. Around him, there was an endless stretch of huge mountains, and peaks stood tall on the mountain range. From afar, it looked like a crouching dragon with sharp horny barbs on its back. What a strong demon chi! Zhuowen looked up and saw that there was no blue sky or white clouds in the sky above the mountain. Instead, there were rolling black clouds. In the depths of the black clouds, there were dense blood-red thunderbolts lingering. The terrifying roar of thunder constantly resounded in his ears, causing his face to turn ugly and his gaze to turn gloomy. The entire mountain range, or rather, the entire heaven and earth, was filled with primordial demon chi that made him fearful. It was like a strange demon realm. Suddenly, Zhuowen seemed to have sensed something, and his gaze fell on a mountain peak on the left. He saw that there was also a figure standing on that mountain peak. The figure was extremely bloated, and at first glance, it looked like a round ball. Ma Yujie? Zhuowen immediately recognized the fat figure, and could not help but rush to the mountain peak on the left. When he landed on the mountain peak, he looked at Ma Yujie and realized that Ma Yujie had turned a deaf ear to his arrival, and was only staring blankly at the sky. Zhuowen originally wanted to question the fat man about the passageway on the primordial tree. However, when he saw that Ma Yujie was in a daze, and there was a deep sadness in the depths of his eyes, he did not question him again. This is the primordial star system? Zhuowen was silent for a moment and suddenly asked. Ma Yujie sighed deeply and said with a bitter smile, "Yes. This is the primordial star system, but it is no longer the primordial star system of the past." Chapter 4686. Brother Ma, since you used to be a creature of the immemorial star system, you should be quite familiar with it. Where is this place? Zhuowen looked around and found that the surrounding mountain range was filled with rolling demonic chi and blood lightning. It was like hell on earth. He couldn't help but ask. Ma Yujie regained his calm. He looked around and said with a frown, "This place is completely shrouded in demonic chi. The terrain has changed greatly, but I can still distinguish a part of it. As he spoke, Ma Yujie flew up into the sky and looked around. After a while, he landed beside Zhuowen. Did you see anything? Zhuowen asked. If I'm not wrong, this should be a mountain range in the 7 constellations star system in the south, Chariot star system. Ma Yujie looked serious and continued, before I died, Chariot star system was still the territory of the immemorial gods. Now it seems. Although Ma Yujie didn't finish his words, Zhuowen could guess what he meant. Chariot star system had been occupied by the immemorial heavenly demons in the years after Ma Yujie died. Where is the immemorial gods' territory? Zhuowen asked. Ma Yujie smiled bitterly and said, Brother Zhuo, I don't have the ability to predict the future. I've been away for too long. I don't know what the current situation of the immemorial star system is. Suddenly, Zhuowen and Ma Yujie's expressions changed greatly. They couldn't help but look up at the sky. In the sky ahead, rolling demonic chi was sweeping over at an extremely fast speed. In the rolling demonic chi, pairs of scarlet eyes flickered with a strange red light. They were looking at the mountain peak where the two of them were. Oh no! It's the army of the immemorial heavenly demons. Ma Yujie's expression changed greatly. Without thinking, he took Zhuowen to hide in a remote cave at the foot of the mountain peak. The moment the two of them hid in the cave, the rolling demonic chi descended and landed on the mountain peak where Zhuowen and Ma Yujie were originally. The demonic chi dispersed and more than 10 figures landed on the open space on the mountain peak. These figures looked very similar to humans. The only difference was that their skin was pitch black and they were wearing ferocious black armor. Other than that, they had ferocious horns growing out of various parts of their bodies, such as their foreheads, elbows, knees, and so on. These figures were the army of primordial heavenly demons. Their leader was a female heavenly demon with a hot body. There was a small horn on her forehead that was a few inches long. It was sparkling and translucent like a natural jade. Although this female heavenly demon's skin was also pitch black, her facial features were very delicate. She could be considered a beauty among the human race. The female extraterrestrial demon was clearly the leader of the team. The dozen or so male extraterrestrial demons, who were far more muscular than the female extraterrestrial demon, followed behind her timidly, not daring to be impudent. I clearly felt 2 unusual auras just now. Why did they disappear now? The female heavenly demon looked around the mountain range, and her scaly brows slowly furrowed. "Milord, just now we sensed 2 auras that suddenly appeared here. Although those auras did not belong to us primordial heavenly demons, they did not seem to belong to primordial gods either. Their auras were very weak. Do you think we sensed wrongly?" A male extraterrestrial demon stepped forward and saluted the female extraterrestrial demon respectfully. "Are you doubting my senses?" The female extraterrestrial demon looked at the male extraterrestrial demon unkindly. "I dare not." The male extraterrestrial demon hurriedly knelt down, trembling as he begged for mercy. "Search the entire area once. Even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, find the 2 auras that I sensed." The female extraterrestrial demon said calmly. "Yes. Yes." The group of male heavenly demons bowed their heads and flew out. They began to search the surrounding mountains in an all-encompassing manner. Soon, only the female extraterrestrial demon with the voluptuous figure was left on the mountain peak. The female extraterrestrial demon's eyes narrowed slightly. Her immense divine sense spread out and began to search the entire mountain peak. Nothing? After searching the entire mountain peak, the female extraterrestrial demon frowned slightly. Just as she was about to withdraw her divine sense, her eyebrows suddenly twitched. Her divine sense stopped at a remote cave at the foot of the mountain. This cave was very ordinary. She had also sent her divine sense into the cave just now. She had carefully examined the cave, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. The position of the gravel at the entrance of the cave is a little different from the one before. The female extraterrestrial demon's divine sense landed at the entrance of the cave. There was a piece of gravel half the size of a palm on the ground, and a mysterious light burst out from the depths of her eyes. Whoosh! The female extraterrestrial demon leaped down slowly from the mountain peak and stopped at the entrance of the cave. Boom! The female extraterrestrial demon suddenly punched the entrance of the cave without warning. Colorful ripples suddenly appeared at the entrance of the cave. It is indeed an array. No wonder it could escape my detection. It is a shielding array. The female extraterrestrial demon sneered and withdrew her right fist. The array at the entrance of the cave shattered into countless fine powder and disappeared without a trace. I give you 3 breaths of time to get out. Otherwise, I don't mind tearing down this entire mountain peak. The female extraterrestrial demon's eyes flickered with scarlet light. She licked her lips and sneered. As soon as she finished speaking, 2 footsteps came from the cave. The female extraterrestrial demon looked up and was suddenly stunned. 2 figures walked out of the cave. Their bodies were surrounded by rolling primordial demon chi. 2 pairs of scarlet eyes were particularly glaring in the demon chi. People of the same race? The female extraterrestrial demon's eyes were filled with doubt. She looked at the 2 figures surrounded by demons with a look of disbelief. Previously, when she led a group of people to patrol this place, she sensed that the aura was obviously not the aura of the demon clan. Why did the aura change so much now? Could it be that she had sensed wrongly? Greetings, my lord. The 2 figures surrounded by demon chi cupped their hands respectfully at the female extraterrestrial demon. Why are the 2 of you here instead of searching for traces of the primordial god? The female extraterrestrial demon frowned and asked. My lord, we were searching for traces of the primordial god. Later on, we sensed an unusual aura here, so we entered this mountain peak to check it out. One of the figures surrounded by demon chi cupped his hands and said. The female extraterrestrial demon raised an eyebrow and said, So you sensed it too? Did you find anything? The 2 figures shook their heads. One of them said, It's very strange. When we arrived here, the aura suddenly disappeared. It was as if it had disappeared into thin air. Hearing this, the female extraterrestrial demon frowned and muttered to herself, Disappeared into thin air? That's strange. My lord, this mountain range is too big. We only searched here. Perhaps the aura is hiding in the other mountains. Please allow us to go to the other mountains to search. One of the figures suddenly said. The female extraterrestrial demon did not suspect him. She nodded and said, Go ahead. Remember to inform me if you find it. Yes. The 2 figures answered solemnly. Then, they turned into 2 streams of light and disappeared. The female extraterrestrial demon stood silently by the side of the cave. She suddenly noticed the broken array flag at the entrance of the cave. She picked up the array flag and looked at it carefully. Her pupils constricted and she said, This was set up not long ago. In other words, not good. Chapter 4687. Men! The female heavenly demon suddenly bellowed. Instantly, several heavenly demons rushed over and knelt in front of her. My lady! What's the matter? The heavenly demons lowered their heads respectfully and asked the female heavenly demon. Did you see those 2 figures shrouded in demonic fog just now? The female heavenly demon asked with a dark gaze. We saw them. They're heading towards the southern mountain, saying that they're searching that area on your orders. One of the heavenly demons lowered his head and said. The female heavenly demon looked towards the southern mountain range, and her face darkened. She stomped her right foot and dashed towards the southern mountain range. After a while, the female heavenly demon returned. However, the scarlet glow in her eyes was getting more and more intense. Frustration and anger filled her eyes. Bastard! There's something wrong with those two fellows. How could you let them go just like that? The female heavenly demon roared furiously at the heavenly demons in front of her, causing them to kneel and tremble in fear. My lady! The demonic aura on those two fellows was clearly very pure primordial demonic chi. How could there be a problem? One of the heavenly demons knelt on the ground and asked doubtfully. Smack! However, just as the heavenly demon finished speaking, he was sent flying by a slap from the female heavenly demon. Are you doubting me? The female heavenly demon stared coldly at the heavenly demon who was sent flying and asked eerily. I wouldn't dare. The heavenly demon hurriedly got up and kowtowed repeatedly on the ground. There's a formation set up in this cave, and it was just set up not long ago. We heavenly demons don't have the talent to set up formations and refine medicine. Only the primordial gods know these unorthodox methods. Therefore, there's definitely something wrong with those two fellows, and it's a huge problem. The female heavenly demon explained with a dark gaze. My lady, are you trying to say that those two fellows are primordial gods? Didn't you say that the primordial gods have long holed up in the 7 constellations starfield in the north? This is the 7 constellations starfield in the south. How could they appear here? That's right. Our primordial heavenly demon army has occupied the 7 constellations starfield in the south for so many years. It's impossible for primordial gods to sneak in, right? Even if primordial gods come here, they'll definitely die. Several heavenly demons discussed among themselves, finding it unbelievable. The 7 constellations in the south had been occupied by the heavenly demons for so many years. It was an impregnable fortress. It was impossible for anyone to sneak in. The female heavenly demon frowned. She was also puzzled. If they were primordial gods, how could those two figures have such pure primordial demonic chi? Moreover, she felt that the devil chi was purer and more advanced than hers, which made her feel a little apprehensive. If it wasn't for the fact that the devil chi of the two figures was too thin, she would have thought that they were heavenly devils of a higher level. My lord, could he be a deserter? After all, the war between the north and the south was imminent. Deserters had appeared in many legions. Those two fellows are sneaking around. They might have escaped from the army. Suddenly, a skyfiend filled in the blanks. What he said immediately received the approval of the other skyfiends. The female skyfiend was also a little shaken. She looked at the array flag in her hand and wondered if the two fellows had found it in the cave and had just activated the array formation. So she had misunderstood those two guys? Humph. If they're deserters from the army, then all the more reason to capture them and execute them according to military law. The female skyfiend snorted. The other skyfiends were submissive, not daring to refute the female skyfiend. Next, the female skyfiend's team searched the mountain range again. After finding no traces, they left reluctantly. After the female skyfiend left, on an inconspicuous ridge in the southern mountain range, droplets of invisible water slowly seeped out and formed a human figure. This human figure was none other than Zhuowen. After deceiving the female skyfiend, Zhuowen and Ma Yujie rushed over. Before the skyfiend noticed, they turned into invisible water and merged into the ridge. Although the secret technique invisible water escape was not of a very high level, Zhuowen had improved it over the years and merged it with the primordial technique. In fact, it had already become a part of the primordial technique. Now, Zhuowen's formless water escape could even deceive the primordial skyfiend. This made Zhuowen pleasantly surprised. Brother Ma, come out. With a wave of his sleeve, Zhuowen released Ma Yujie from the great world. Are they sure they left? Ma Yujie was still a little scared and kept looking ahead. They left. Zhuowen nodded. Ma Yujie heaved a sigh of relief and said sadly, looks like the 7 constellations starfield in the south has been completely occupied by the skyfiends. The entire 7 constellations starfield in the south is extremely vast. If this place is occupied by the Skyfiends, even if we hide here and there, we will be discovered one day. Zhuowen's eyes flickered and he suddenly said, Brother Ma, I have an idea. Will it work? What is it? Ma Yujie hurriedly asked. We infiltrate the primordial Skyfiend army. Then we gather the relevant information, Zhuowen said in a low voice. Ma Yujie's pupil shrank and he couldn't help but shout, I say, are you crazy? Infiltrating the primordial Skyfiend army, isn't that courting death? Zhuowen's expression was calm, and he didn't speak. Instead, he slowly withdrew the demonic aura around him. His skin turned black, and a few feet long black horn grew on his forehead. Blazing primordial demonic chi continuously surged out from his body. His scarlet eyes seemed to carry an endless demonic aura, making one's hair stand on end. I have never seen a primordial Skyfiend before, so I couldn't imitate it. Now that I have, and I have absorbed the real primordial demonic chi, my disguise as a primordial Skyfiend is basically flawless. Zhuowen's scarlet eyes stared at Ma Yujie as he said calmly. Ma Yujie felt goosebumps all over his body when he felt those scarlet eyes that were filled with violence. A chill ran up his spine. At this moment, the feeling that Zhuowen gave him was no less than that of the Skyfiends he had seen before. In fact, the demonic aura emitted from his body was even more terrifying. Are you sure you won't be exposed? Ma Yujie was still worried. You don't trust me, but don't you trust the primordial technique? Zhuowen said calmly. The primordial technique was definitely a technique that stole the fortune of heaven and earth. In terms of imitating one's aura, it was almost 100% accurate, and there had never been a mistake. Ma Yujie nodded and tried to circulate the primordial technique. Demonic chi enveloped his body, and his skin turned black, and several hard black horns grew on his body. However, Ma Yujie's body was still like a ball, and his body was completely the same horizontally and vertically. He looked more like a comical Skyfiend. Brother Zhua, what do you think of me like this? Ma Yujie walked over and circled in front of Zhuowen, his chubby fat jiggling. Eh? You better forget it? You're too fat. Zhuowen shook his head. Ma Yujie was speechless. Chapter 4688. Under Zhuowen's teasing several times, Ma Yujie finally gave up on disguising as a heavenly demon. Just as Zhuowen said, heavenly demons were all as strong as oxen, and few were as fat as a ball like Ma Yujie. If Ma Yujie really disguised as a heavenly demon with his body, the only possibility was to be captured and interrogated. Helpless, Ma Yujie could only give up the idea of disguising and hide in Zhuowen's big world in a daze. Of course, even if Ma Yujie was in the big world, he still kept in contact with Zhuowen at all times. After all, Zhuowen was not familiar with the immemorial star system, so he naturally needed Ma Yujie to guide him. The closest place to this mountain range should be Burning Heaven Star City. Let's go there first. If the star orbit of this city can still be used, we can use the star orbit to quickly shuttle to the other cities in the star field. Ma Yujie's voice sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Star orbit? What's that? Zhuowen asked in surprise. In the immemorial star system, the so-called star orbit's function is similar to the teleportation array in your chaotic starry sky. However, the teleportation distance of the star orbit is much further than the teleportation array, and it is activated with the help of the power of the stars. Ma Yujie explained and continued, Brother Zhua, it's about time to go. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. After Ma Yujie pointed in a direction, he turned into a stream of light and quickly rushed over. Burning Heaven Star City was a rather famous giant city among the cities in the southern 7 constellations starfield. The cities in the immemorial star system were very different from the cities in the 100 domains outside the realm. The territory of Star City was so vast that it was comparable to a realm in the 100 domains outside the realm. It could be seen how huge Star City was. When Zhuowen arrived at Burning Heaven Star City, he was completely shocked by the grandeur of this Star City. Burning Heaven Star City was a huge city formed by countless palaces. Moreover, this huge city was not standing on the ground, but suspended thousands of miles high in the sky. At the bottom of Star City, small stars supported the entire Star City, exuding an eternal radiance. According to Ma Yujie's description, the sky of the Burning Heaven Star City was covered with endless heavenly flames all year round. Zhuowen looked up and indeed saw the flames in the sky of the Burning Heaven Star City. However, these flames were not golden like Ma Yujie had said, but black with surging demonic might. It wasn't just the flames in the sky. The entire Star City was filled with surging demonic chi, emitting a heart-palpitating demonic might. Sigh. It seemed that the female heavenly demon was right. The 7 constellations in the south had indeed been taken over by the heavenly demon army. This Burning Heaven Star City has actually been transformed into a demon city. It's really lamentable. Ma Yujie's sorrowful voice slowly sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Brother Ma, there's no need to be so depressed. The primordial gods haven't been completely defeated. Otherwise, the heavenly devils would have rushed out of the primordial star system and invaded the primordial star system. Zhuowen secretly consoled him. Brother Zhuo is right. We'll have to rely on Brother Zhuo to gather information. Ma Yujie sighed softly. Zhuowen nodded. Looking at the Star City suspended in the sky, he stepped on the ground and flew up, landing at the Star City's city gate. The Star City's city gate was extremely huge, as if it connected heaven and earth. On both sides of the city gate, there were dozens of heavenly devils inspecting the numerous heavenly devils entering and leaving. Zhuowen looked around and realized that the number of heavenly devils entering and leaving the city was really not small. There were strong and weak heavenly devils, old and young, and not all of them were demonic soldiers of the army. Most of them were rogue cultivators and commoners. This was very similar to the human race. After all, although heavenly devils were powerful and terrifying, there were naturally strong and weak heavenly devils, and they also possessed high intelligence. The learning ability of these heavenly devils is really strong. Back then, before I fell, heavenly devils were simply barbaric existences. They didn't even know how to make clothes, jewelry, and so on. Only their innate strength was extremely terrifying and destructive. Now, these heavenly devils are actually like the primordial gods and the human race, becoming so orderly and developing a pretty good civilization. Ma Yujie's surprised voice slowly sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Look, Burning Heaven Star City actually has a large array. Didn't you say that Magatama was unable to set up arrays, refine pills, or refine weapons? Zhuowen suddenly stopped and looked around Star City. He keenly sensed that there were extremely powerful array fluctuations around Star City. That's right. It's so strange. Before the primordial gods withdrew from Star City, they would definitely destroy the large array, weapons, and so on. Why are there still fluctuations of a large array in Burning Heaven Star City? Ma Yujie was also rather puzzled. Let's enter the city first. Zhuowen shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He stepped towards the city gate. The moment he reached the city gate, several heavenly devils immediately blocked Zhuowen's path. Routine inspection. A heavenly devil glanced at Zhuowen indifferently. His huge divine sense swept over Zhuowen, and his heart was filled with doubts. Although Zhuowen's body was surging with devil chi, his aura was very weak, even weaker than an ordinary heavenly devil. It was as if he was a newborn heavenly devil. However, this guy in front of him was obviously an adult heavenly devil. How could he be a baby heavenly devil? Zhuowen frowned slightly. he discovered that a heavenly devil who was inspecting him was planning to drill into his sea of consciousness with his terrifying divine sense. Zhuowen coldly snorted and immediately opened the limitless devil book, releasing all the devil qi he had absorbed from the primordial devil seed. At this moment, the devil infant who was bound in the devil domain opened his eyes. A terrifying demonic aura surged out and filled the entire city gate. Plop, plop. The heavenly devil who was inspecting him and the other heavenly devils at the city gate were all shocked by this devil power and knelt on the ground, trembling. Zhuowen's aura was still not strong, but the devil power emitted from his body was extremely terrifying. It was the suppression of a superior heavenly devil on an inferior Magatama. My lord, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have searched your soul. The heavenly devil who was inspecting Zhuowen's sea of consciousness was so frightened that he prostrated himself on the ground, breaking out in cold sweat. Zhuowen stood silently on the spot, also breaking out in cold sweat. This was because the devil infant in the devil domain was actually trying to break free from his restraint. Even he was afraid of the devil power. Just as Zhuowen was about to lose control of the devil infant, the four primordial stones in the depths of his sea of consciousness released a powerful and mysterious purple glow. A purple ray of light shot out and touched the devil infant's forehead. Immediately, countless purple light patterns appeared on the surface of the devil infant's body, suppressing the countless scarlet demon patterns on the surface of the devil infant's body. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Zhuowen immediately closed the devil domain, and the terrifying devil power finally dissipated. Zhuowen looked around and realized that many heavenly devils were prostrating on the ground, not daring to raise their heads to look at Zhuowen. He was stunned for a moment before he understood something. "My lord, please spare our lives. My lord, please spare our lives." The many heavenly devils prostrated on the ground and begged Zhuowen for mercy. "Brother Zhuo, it seems that the devil infant that we are restraining in the Master God domain is not simple. Heavenly devils are more particular about hierarchy than humans and primordial gods. A high-class heavenly devil has the absolute right to kill a low-class heavenly devil." While Zhuowen was in a daze, Ma Yujie's surprised voice sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Zhuowen nodded. Just as he was about to get these heavenly devils to stand up, he suddenly realized that his current identity was a high-class heavenly devil, and heavenly devils were cruel by nature. How could they have a merciful heart? Since you know your mistake, then you can kill yourself. Zhuowen looked down at the heavenly devil who wanted to search his soul. Chapter 4689. Spare my life. My lord. The heavenly demon kneeling in front of Zhuowen was so scared that his face turned pale. He kept kowtowing to Zhuowen, begging for mercy. His head was bleeding from the kowtow. "If you don't kill yourself, do you want me to do it myself?" Zhuowen's voice was low, and his scarlet eyes emitted a terrifying light as he said indifferently. The heavenly demon guard's heart was like dead ashes. He crossed his hands and smashed them between his eyebrows. Splat! The heavenly demon guard's head exploded, and his headless corpse fell to the side. The other heavenly demons knelt on the ground, trembling in fear, not daring to say a word. "I'm not an unreasonable person. This heavenly demon offended me just now, so I only killed him. Do you accept this?" Zhuowen said calmly. The heavenly demons kneeling at the city gate hurriedly kowtowed. Who dared to not accept this? This person in front of them did not seem to have a strong aura, but the demonic aura that suddenly erupted completely suppressed them. This was definitely a high-grade heavenly demon. Although there were countless heavenly demons in the ancient star system, there were not many high-grade heavenly demons. Each of them was a high-ranking official of a territory, like a general or commander of a large territory. Even if such an existence killed them all, they would not dare to complain. Zhuowen ignored these trembling heavenly demons and walked toward the city gate. After Zhuowen entered the city, many heavenly demons outside the city heaved a sigh of relief and stood up in fear. Among the guards at the city gate, several heavenly demon guards looked at each other and immediately went into the city. They planned to report what happened at the city gate to the city lord. The arrival of a high-grade heavenly demon was definitely a big matter. If they did not receive him well, their entire city would be in danger of being destroyed. Not long after Zhuowen stepped into the city, a skinny heavenly demon carefully followed behind Zhuowen. He seemed to be afraid of being discovered by Zhuowen, so he tiptoed and followed from afar, not daring to get close at all. Little did he know that he had already been discovered by Zhuowen. "What is it?" Zhuowen turned around and looked straight at the thin skyfiend behind him. He realized that this heavenly demon's aura was much weaker than most adult heavenly demons. Judging from its size, it should still be underage. The scrawny heavenly demon was so frightened that he couldn't help but take a few steps back. Then, he hurriedly knelt on the ground and kowtowed. "Please forgive me, my lord." This lowly one saw that Your Excellency wasn't too familiar with Burning Heaven Star City, so you want to show me the way? Zhuowen asked calmly. "Yes. This lowly one is willing to serve my lord with all his heart and soul." The skinny heavenly demon kowtowed a few more times, but he did not dare to raise his head to look at Zhuowen. Zhuowen was silent for a moment. He looked at the skinny heavenly devil and said, "Sure. This is indeed the first time I've come to Burning Heaven Star City. I'll have to trouble you later." The skinny heavenly demon was overjoyed. After thanking Zhuowen again, he got up and led the way for Zhuowen. After chatting for a while, Zhuowen learned that this skinny heavenly demon was called Mo Suji. He was an insignificant, ordinary heavenly demon in Burning Heaven Star City. He could not even be considered a low-grade heavenly demon. These ordinary heavenly demons were the lowest of the heavenly demons and were only fit to do odd jobs. Their status was not much better than that of human slaves. Those low-level and mid-level heavenly demons could slaughter these ordinary heavenly demons who had no strength to even truss a chicken. When Mo Suji saw the scene of many heavenly demons kneeling and kowtowing to Zhuowen, he knew that the time to change his fate had come. So, he mustered up his courage and followed Zhuowen, intending to be Zhuowen's guide. Zhuowen sighed in his heart, thinking that the world of heavenly demons was really much crueler than that of the human world. The law of the jungle was vividly reflected in this place. It was extremely bloody and naked. If not for the fact that Mo Suji was Zhuowen, he might have been killed on the spot for rashly recommending himself. At the same time, Zhuowen also learned from Mo Suji that all heavenly demons had the word demon in their names. Zhuowen thought for a while and decided to use the pseudonym Emowen. This name was very compatible with the name of heavenly demons. Perhaps because Mo Suji had hooked up with a high-grade heavenly demon like Zhuowen, he was very excited. Along the way, he introduced the detailed geography of Burning Heaven Star City to Zhuowen, including how many inner cities there were, how many forces there were, how many important figures were there, and so on. It could be said that Mo Suji racked his brains, trying to tell Zhuowen everything he knew in order to curry favor with Zhuowen. "You said that there are no high-grade heavenly demons in Burning Heaven Star City?" Zhuowen stopped and could not help but look at Mo Suji and ask. Mo Suji nodded seriously and said, "Yes. What kind of existence is a high-grade heavenly demon? They are all existences similar to feudal officials. The most powerful person in Burning Heaven Star City is the City Lord, but he is only a mid-grade heavenly demon." At this point, Mo Suji glanced at Zhuowen and said, "Even the Lord City Lord is far inferior when compared to you." Zhuowen did not answer Mo Suji's words, but said indifferently, "Let's find an inn first." Mo Suji smiled embarrassedly and hurriedly led Zhuowen to the nearest inn. Not far from the inn, suddenly a commotion attracted Zhuowen's attention. Zhuowen looked at demonic neonate and knew that she definitely didn't intend to cooperate. He glanced at the surface of the demon infant's body and discovered that the scarlet demonic patterns on its skin had been completely suppressed by the power of the primordial stone. He was completely relieved. His spirit transformed into a wisp and entered the demonic domain, revealing his own appearance. Kaki. The demonic infant looked at Zhuowen and laughed mockingly. He was already intelligent, so he could naturally see that Zhuowen wanted to borrow his demonic might, but he refused to cooperate. Little guy, seeing how uncooperative you are, I'm very gratified. Zhuowen smiled slightly, raised his hand, and slapped the demonic infant mercilessly. The crisp sound of the slap was so loud in the demonic domain. The demonic infant flew dozens of meters back, staring at Zhuowen in a daze with his pitch-black eyes. He clearly didn't expect that this lowly human cultivator in front of him would actually dare to hit him. Although this human cultivator's slap didn't hurt him at all, it was already a great humiliation to him. See if I don't beat you to death today. Zhuowen didn't give the demonic infant a chance to react at all. He suddenly jumped out and kicked the demonic infant's face, using all his strength every time. In the end, he used both his hands and feet, slapping the demonic infant's face with every move. After being dumbfounded for a while, the demonic infant was completely enraged and let out a shocking roar. Terrifying demonic might soared into the sky, and the entire demonic domain rumbled as if it was about to collapse. When Zhuowen saw this, he revealed a gratified smile. Then, his spirit quickly escaped from the demonic domain, running away after slapping the face. How exciting! Roar! Roar! The demonic infant let out an earth-shattering roar that resounded throughout the demonic domain. Terrifying demonic might surged out from Zhuowen's body like a monstrous tsunami. The moment this demonic might appeared, all the heavenly demons present knelt on the ground in fear, trembling with pale faces. The weapon store owner's face stiffened. He was so scared that he knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Zhuowen, begging for mercy. Sir, please forgive me, this lowly one has eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. The weapon store owner finally believed Mo Shuji's words. The person in front of him was indeed a superior heavenly demon. This demonic might was simply too terrifying. It was even more terrifying than the city lord of Burning Heaven Star City. Zhuowen ignored the weapon store owner. His gaze fell on the little girl who was curled up on the ground and trembling. Come here. Zhuowen ordered the little girl. The little girl raised her head with difficulty, revealing a delicate and cute face. A pair of big eyes looked pitifully at Zhuowen, filled with fear. Chapter 46-91. Although Zhuowen was shocked by the terrifying demonic aura on Mo Yongchang's body, he remained calm and composed on the surface and appeared indifferent. So you're the city lord of this city? Why are you looking for me? Zhuowen's voice was low, and one could not tell if he was happy or angry. He gave off an unfathomable feeling. Mo Yongchang's heart trembled, but he still lowered his head and said respectfully, Lord Superior Heavenly Demon has arrived. This lowly one will naturally welcome you personally. Please come to my residence and let this lowly one entertain you personally. Zhuowen's expression was indifferent as he said, No need. I'll find a place to stay myself. There's no need to trouble you, City Lord. Mo Yongchang was a little disappointed when he heard that, but he did not dare to refute. A superior heavenly demon was not someone he could disobey. Since the other party said that he did not need it, he naturally did not dare to force it. Is there anything else? Zhuowen saw that Mo Yongchang was still standing in front of him and said impatiently, Nothing. Mo Yongchang hurriedly retreated, his forehead full of cold sweat. Zhuowen did not even look at Mo Yongchang. He picked up the little girl with one hand and left. The moment he left the city lord's army, Zhuowen faintly glanced at a female heavenly demon at the front of the team, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He knew this female heavenly demon. It was the female heavenly demon who had come to search for him and Ma Yujie when they had just arrived in the primordial star system. He did not expect that female heavenly demon to be from Burning Heaven Star City. "My lord, wait for me." Mo Suji hurriedly followed after him, his eyes filled with boundless admiration. "City lord, is this really a superior heavenly demon?" After Zhuowen left, the female heavenly demon approached and whispered to Mo Yongchang. It was not that the female heavenly demon doubted Zhuowen, but that Zhuowen's aura was too weak without releasing his demonic aura. It was not that she had never seen a superior heavenly demon before. Which superior heavenly demon did not have a monstrous aura, as deep as the sea, causing people to be terrified. However, this so-called superior heavenly demon in front of her paled in comparison. Mo Yongchang said in a low voice, "It should be true. Just now, the demonic power he released far exceeded ours. Other than a superior heavenly devil, who else could possess such terrifying demonic power?" The female heavenly demon fell silent when she heard that. Thinking back to the demonic might that Zhuowen had released earlier, she felt a sense of lingering fear. "Since this sir has come to my Burning Heaven Star City, then we can't be negligent. Do you understand?" Mo Yongchang said in a low voice. The female skyfiend hurriedly bowed and said, "Don't worry, my lord. This subordinate will not dare to be negligent." Mo Yongchang nodded. Then, he left with the soldiers of the city governor's estate. Zhuowen found an inn not far away and stayed there. What made Zhuowen feel awkward was that he had no money on him. The coins used by heavenly devils were completely different from those used by human cultivators. Heavenly devils called them devil coins. Zhuowen's identity as a superior heavenly devil was originally a disguise. Moreover, it was his first time in the ancient star system. How could he have devil coins on him? However, the moment Zhuowen stepped into the inn, the innkeeper and the surrounding heavenly devil customers all knelt in front of Zhuowen. "Superior heavenly devil has come. This lowly one is in fear and trepidation." The innkeeper was a short heavenly devil. He hurriedly walked forward and knelt in front of Zhuowen. Behind the innkeeper were the waiters, accountants and other servants. Beside them was a group of customers. Zhuowen was stunned. Then, he understood that the innkeeper and the others must have seen what happened at the weapons store. "I'm here to stay. How much is it for a night?" Zhuowen said coldly. "My lord, you're too kind. What kind of status do you have? To be able to stay in my inn is an honor to me. Why would you need money?" The innkeeper lowered his posture and showed a flattering smile to Zhuowen. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up slightly. His expression was still cold as he said, "In that case, arrange a good room for me. I need 2 rooms." "I'll arrange it right away. My lord, please follow me." The innkeeper hurriedly agreed and got up to make an inviting gesture to Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded. He carried the little girl and slowly followed the innkeeper. The little girl was obedient. She did not say a word. Her head drooped as if she had accepted her fate. However, tears flowed down her cheeks like beads. As she was afraid of angering Zhuowen, she did not dare to cry out loud. She could only cry silently. "My lord, these 2 rooms are the best rooms in our inn. Here are the keys." The innkeeper took out 2 keys and handed them to Zhuowen. He asked, "My lord, do you have any other orders?" "No. You may leave," Zhuowen said calmly. "Okay." The innkeeper nodded and slowly retreated. Zhuowen threw a key to Mo Suji and said, "You can stay in the other room. If there's anything, just come to my room to find me." Mo Suji received the key and respectfully kowtowed to Zhuowen before slowly retreating. Zhuowen opened the door and walked in. He found that the room was quite spacious and the decorations were also very elegant. What made him even more surprised was that the demonic chi in the room was much denser than the outside world. Clearly, it was beneficial to the cultivation of heavenly demons. Zhuowen put down the little girl. With a wave of his sleeve, he formed runes and shielded the entire room. After doing all this, Zhuowen sat on his seat and silently looked at the little girl in front of him. Chapter 46-93. But with your current identity, you can't join the army. Ma Yujie looked at Zhuowen from head to toe and shook his head. Zhuowen smiled bitterly and nodded. His starting point was too high, disguising himself as a superior heavenly demon the moment he arrived. With the identity and status of a superior heavenly demon, why would he stupidly go to the city lord's mansion to sign up for the army? It was easy to arouse suspicion. Only if you remove your identity as a superior heavenly demon and join the army as an ordinary heavenly demon can you successfully enter the army. Ma Yujie said in a deep voice. Zhuowen nodded in agreement. He would never go to the battlefield as a superior heavenly demon. It would be easy to arouse suspicion, and if he was exposed, it would be all over. If you want to join the army, you must first remove your identity as a superior heavenly demon. The only way now is to leave the city as a superior heavenly demon and then enter the city with a different appearance. Ma Yujie suggested. That works. Zhuowen nodded and decided to accept Ma Yujie's suggestion. For the next few days, Zhuowen basically stayed in the inn. He knew very well that Mo Yongchang's informants must be near the inn. Although he revealed the demonic aura of a superior heavenly demon, Mo Yongchang would not be negligent and would definitely secretly watch his every move. Of course, Mo Yongchang did not dare to go too far and only let his informants watch from afar. At the same time, Zhuowen also asked Mo Shuji about joining the army in Burning Heaven Star City. Although Mo Shuji was puzzled, he did not dare to hold back and told him everything about joining the army. What made Zhuowen even more surprised was that Mo Shuji was also preparing to join the army and participate in the War of Gods and Demons in 3 months. Although I'm an ordinary heavenly demon, I also desire to make contributions and become an existence like you in the future. Speaking of joining the army, Mo Shuji's eyes were filled with excitement. Zhuowen did not say anything and only shook his head inwardly. Mo Shuji was just an ordinary heavenly demon and would only end up as cannon fodder if he joined the army. The probability of him making contributions was very small. In the next few days, other than cultivating the limitless demonic scripture in the inn, Zhuowen would leave the inn with Mo Shuji and stroll around Burning Heaven Star City. Soon, he memorized the entire city's geography. Zhuowen found that the speed of cultivating the limitless demonic scripture in the ancient Star City, especially the demonic domain as he continued to cultivate the demonic scripture, the demonic scripture, the demonic scripture, and in less than a month, Zhuowen's cultivation reached the brink of a breakthrough. Brother Zhuo, you can leave Burning Heaven Star City now. When Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes from his cultivation, Ma Yujie's voice slowly rang out in his mind. Zhuowen nodded, stood up, and walked out of the inn with the little girl. At this moment, Mo Shuji was also called out by Zhuowen. My lord, are you leaving just like that? Mo Shuji's eyes were filled with disappointment when he learned that Zhuowen was leaving Burning Heaven Star City. During this period of time, with the help of Zhuowen's demonic might, he could hold his head high. Now that Zhuowen was leaving Burning Heaven Star City, he would lose this powerful support. It was inevitable that he would feel disappointed. I came to Burning Heaven Star City to settle down. There are more important things that I need to do, Zhuowen said indifferently. Emo Shuji's eyes flickered and he suddenly said, "My lord, I want to follow by your side, I wonder if you can let me?" Zhuowen said indifferently, "You're not allowed." Hearing this, Emo Shuji smiled bitterly, but he did not dare to mention it again. After all, it was Lord Superior Heavenly Demon in front of him. How powerful was his strength? How could he casually provoke him? "Farewell, my lord." Emo Shuji bowed to Zhuowen. Zhuowen was expressionless as he stepped out of the inn and headed toward the city gate. Inside the city lord's mansion, Emo Yongchang sat on the main seat. Listening to the servant's report, he said in surprise, "That Lord Superior Heavenly Demon left just like that?" "Yes." After that lord came out of the inn, he walked straight toward the city gate. He should be leaving the city gate soon, the servant reported while kneeling on the ground. Emo Yongchang's eyes flickered, and he said in a deep voice, "Follow me to send that lord off." As he spoke, Emo Yongchang strode out of the city lord's mansion and rushed toward the city gate. At this moment, outside burning Heaven Star City's city gate. When Zhuowen just walked out of the city gate, after the guards at the city gate saw Zhuowen, they all knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Zhuowen continuously. Zhuowen didn't pay any attention to these kowtowing guards, instead minding his own business as he walked away from the city gate. The little girl followed behind Zhuowen silently, not saying a word, surprisingly obedient. "Your Excellency, please wait." Suddenly, a loud and clear voice stopped Zhuowen. Zhuowen's footsteps paused, slowly turned around, and saw Emo Yongchang leading a large team, walking over quickly. "So, it's the city lord. I wonder what's the matter?" Although Zhuowen was flustered in his heart, he was calm and composed on the surface, saying with the air of an expert. Chapter 4694. After leaving the burning Heaven Star City, Zhuowen found a valley far away to rest. He was not in a hurry to return to the burning Heaven Star City, as there was still some time before the battle between gods and demons. Zhuowen planned to use this time to properly control the demon infant's demonic power. He could feel that as the demon domain continued to be perfected, his control of the demon infant became more and more smooth. Of course, he also understood that the reason why he could control it so smoothly was that most of the demon infant's power was sealed by the primordial stone. His aura was still too weak. If he joined the army in his current state, he would most likely be eliminated. If he could fully control the demon infant, he could control the demon infant's demonic power to the level of an inferior heavenly demon. In this way, he should be able to join the army smoothly. For the next period of time, Zhuowen sat cross-legged in the valley and continued to cultivate the limitless demon scripture. Purple Jade was very well behaved. It stayed by Zhuowen's side and occasionally played with some small creatures in the valley, but it never disturbed Zhuowen. Of course, if Purple Jade was bored, it could directly enter the outside world to find Ma Yujie. Zhuowen's outside world had long been open to Purple Jade. If the latter wanted to enter the outside world, it only needed a thought to enter and exit. Half a month later, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes. His whole body was surrounded by thick, liquid-like demonic qi, rolling and sweeping like an abyss. His pair of scarlet eyes were full of violence and killing intent. It seems that Brother Zhuo can freely control the demon infant's demonic power. Congratulations! Ma Yujie's voice sounded in his mind, with a trace of surprise and admiration. It's time to go to the burning Heaven Star City again. Zhuowen stood up, walked out of the valley, and headed toward the burning Heaven Star City. This time, because Zhuowen could freely control the extent of his demonic power, when he entered the city, he was not repeatedly checked because his aura was too weak and smoothly entered the city. After entering the city, Zhuowen headed toward the city lord's mansion. During the time he was in burning Heaven Star City, under the guidance of Mo Suji, He had already figured out the entire city's terrain and street. Naturally, he also knew where the City Lord's mansion was. The City Lord's mansion was located in the core of burning Heaven Star City and was heavily guarded. Ordinary heavenly demons did not have the qualifications to enter. When Zhuowen arrived at the vicinity of the City Lord's mansion, he saw several teams patrolling the area. The security was extremely tight. "Who are you?" A Sky Fiend soldier saw Zhuowen loitering nearby and walked over, questioning him coldly. "I'm here to sign up for the army. Is the City Lord's mansion still recruiting soldiers?" Emoji said indifferently. "I've heard of you," Zhuowen said with his head still lowered. "What's your name?" Emoji asked. Emojua. Zhuowen casually gave a name. Emoji nodded and said indifferently, "Since you're already a low-level Sky Fiend, you don't need to participate in the army assessment. Moreover, I can make you a centurion. The war of gods and demons is imminent. If you can perform well in this war, you'll be promoted to Chiliarch very quickly." With that said, Emoji took out a pitch-black token and threw it to Zhuowen. She continued, "This is the identity token of a centurion. You have the authority to lead 100 ordinary Sky Fiend soldiers. As for which ones you want to lead, you can choose for yourself." With that said, Emoji pointed to another empty space in the training ground. There stood many Sky Fiends dressed casually. "Those are ordinary Sky Fiends who passed the assessment. You can choose as you wish," Emoji said indifferently. "Quickly thank Lord Emoji," the Sky Fiend soldier hurriedly said to Zhuowen. "Thank you, Lord Emoji." Zhuowen bowed pretentiously. Following that, Zhuowen was led by the Sky Fiend soldier to the other side of the training ground to choose his soldiers from the ordinary Sky Fiends who had passed the assessment. Just as Zhuowen was about to walk out of the training ground, a skinny figure attracted Zhuowen's attention. In the training ground, a skinny and weak underage Sky Fiend was being viciously beaten by a veteran Sky Fiend soldier. "I've said it before. You're too weak. You don't have the qualifications to join the army. If you continue to pester endlessly, see if I don't beat you to death." The veteran Sky Fiend soldier was exasperated. He lashed the skinny Sky Fiend viciously and kicked him mercilessly with his right foot. "Let me try. I believe I can do it. I want to become a superior Sky Fiend like Lord Emowen. Only by joining the army can I do it. I beg you, let me in. I'll train very hard. I'm not afraid of hardship." The skinny Sky Fiend knelt on the ground and kowtowed continuously. No matter how hard he was whipped and kicked, his willpower still could not be shaken. "Trash is trash. You're destined to be an ordinary Sky Fiend. You actually want to become a superior Sky Fiend. You're dreaming. Die." The veteran Sky Fiend soldier was furious. He suddenly pulled out his large sword and chopped down at the skinny Sky Fiend's head. "Wait." At this moment, a loud shout rang out. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.